Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What are companion videos? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. See, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we save the second half of the show to take your live comments and questions that you send in with your tips when you support the channel. However, we don't always have enough time to get around to all the live questions that get sent in, but I want to make sure that those questions get answered as quickly as possible and as soon as possible and properly in a video. So we gather up those questions and we address them here on companion videos. Now, this companion video is being recorded on Monday, January the 18th, and we again had an issue with the John Campea Show earlier today. As we got about 15, 20 minutes into the live questions part of the show, we started having, again, streaming issues. Despite the fact that I have gigabit Ethernet here at the house, and YouTube says they fixed the problem on their end, and yet the problem is still persisting. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an announcement here. So we do have a lot of questions to get caught up on, but I'm also going to let you guys know tomorrow's John Campea Show, and for the rest of the week, we're going to do the John Campea Show at 12 noon, because we're finding that this speed interruption happens around the same time every day, like around 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we're going to try doing the show a little bit later at 12 p.m., at least for the rest of the week, until we get moved into the new house. Now, you guys know, Ann and I are moving 11 days from now. Ann and I are moving into a new place. It is our first house that we've ever bought together. We actually bought it about a month ago, and it has been in the midst of big renovations, and we're super excited about it. And then we're going to be in a new place with new internet service, and everything should be good. New little studio. I'm excited about it. And by the way, I'm going to share a picture. This is a picture we just took this weekend. This is us down at the new place. This is our backyard. You can see backyard is we're even doing renovations in the backyard. You can see that 30-foot long deck that's overlooking, and it's great. I mean, because our backyard, we're elevated about 25 feet off the ground, off the back, and behind us is trees and mountains and a golf course and all this kind of stuff. It's just beautiful. And you can see we've got a really nice big pool, and we're all excited now. Some of you may be wondering, John, how on earth do you afford that living in Los Angeles? Well, it's easy. I had to move outside of Los Angeles. Ann and I tried for years to try to find a place that we could afford in LA that was at least a decent house, and the prices of housing in LA is so astronomical, and we just couldn't afford it. So we finally decided, you know what? We both work from home now. Ann now works from home. I work from home. So you know what? We can move a little bit further outside of LA. So we moved about an hour outside of LA to Riverside, California. And that's about just an hour outside. So it's really still quick and easy for us to get into town, into LA when we need to be. But we moved out there, and all of a sudden the housing prices were like significantly cheaper, like way cheaper, way more affordable. And that's how we were able to do it. But anyway, once we get moved into there, we should have all the internet problems all fixed up. I'm getting business class internet at that new place, so it should be rock solid and all that kind of stuff. And my apologies that the shows have been getting interrupted by these service things. It's just the bane of technology. It allows me to do a global worldwide show from home, but I'm at its mercy when it decides to crap out. It's really kind of frustrating, but thank you guys for your patience and indulgence as I get through this. And again, for the rest of the week, starting tomorrow, we'll be doing the show at 12 noon. Okay. With that down, let's start getting caught up on your questions that you guys have sent in, shall we? And we're going to pick things up here, starting with Vodista is Copista writes, and tips in like $15. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. All right. Hello, John and team. Imagine the world is normal now. What kind of movie could beat the domestic box office record of The Force Awakens? If even Endgame failed. Kindest regards, P.S. Hope Aaron is back soon. Yeah. I actually got to give Aaron a call today. We got to get this figured out soon, because just with the new lockdowns and everything like that, we'll figure out. Aaron will be back. Don't worry. Aaron will be back. She's great. So anyway, I honestly think the movie that, if anything, will ever beat it, will be something that we don't expect. Like, who would ever thought Titanic would be, I mean, certainly when they were making it and it was about to come out, nobody ever expected Titanic to be the hit that it was, let alone become the #1 box office film of all time and hold that record for years and years and years, until another James Cameron film came along that caught everybody by surprise. With Avatar. I mean, even when Avatar came out, actually, let me go, because I think it only made like $70 million on its opening weekend, which isn't horrible, but it's not like the best either. Let me just double check this out here. Let's see here. Avatar, where is its opening? Yeah, there's the opening right there. $77 million in its opening weekend. That's not bad. But, you know, when we see movies like hit movies, we consider opening with 100+ million. Big blockbuster films, we think about opening like with 200 million. Not a ton of films have opened at 200 million, but you know. And then Avatar went on to become the biggest box office film of all time for nearly a decade. And it took a movie like Endgame that had a 10-year buildup, a 10-year and 20+ film with about 30 big stars all in the thing, and this big, huge buildup of 10 years and 20 films, and it took that to finally beat it. It was one we did not expect, like Titanic. And I have a feeling that if there's ever going to be another one that beats, say, The Force Awakens domestic record, I think it's going to be a movie like that. One that we don't necessarily suspect. One that we suspect will be a big film, but never thought it would be like an all-time big film. You know what I'm saying? And I got a feeling it's going to be a movie like that. So let's see. First of all, they got to get the movie theaters open again first. That's job number one, and then we'll worry about the rest later. Okay, let's move on here. Anonymous on Purpose writes, I played the recently released Matrix prank from The Office. For those of you who don't know, The Office, which is now on Peacock, and to celebrate it, you know, they moved it off Netflix and now have it on NBC Universal's Peacock. To celebrate its arrival on Peacock, they released a never-before-seen cold open from The Office that was like a Matrix prank that Jim was pulling on Dwight. Never before seen, and it's hilarious. Anyway, I played the recently released Matrix prank from The Office and went down a 5-hour YouTube rabbit hole laughing myself sick. Now I'm sad that The Office isn't available on any streaming service for me, as we don't have P-Chick or whatever its name is in Europe. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be one of the downsides, is that Peacock being... The Office now being on Peacock, which has a free option. You can watch Peacock for free if you live in areas that you have it. But for areas that don't have Peacock, I don't know what your options are. Maybe they'll still allow it to be on Netflix or some other service where Netflix is, or Peacock is not yet available. I don't know, but that sucks. If you live in a place that doesn't have Peacock and Peacock will, like, NBC will only put The Office on Peacock, that's got to suck. Because The Office is, like, still to this day the #1 stream show in the world. So I hope they're able to work that out for you, Anonymous. I really do. I hope you get some options presented to you soon. Okay, next up. The Masta writes, Hey, John, have you read the book Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke? No, I have not. He wrote 2001 Space Odyssey. I want this book to be made into a movie so badly. David Fincher was once attached to direct. What are your thoughts? No idea. I'll be honest with you. Never even heard of it. Never even heard of it. Let me look this up. Rendezvous with Rama. Let me check this out here. So where is it? Here's Rendezvous with Rama. On Amazon right now. Winner of the Hugo and Nebula Awards, Arthur Clarke is quite splendid. We experience a chilling touch of Alien, the not quite knowable, as distinguishes science fiction from its most technically imaginative. That's a review from the New York Times. Sounds interesting, but I don't know anything about it. But hey, sign me up. Sounds good to me. Completely sign me up. But no, I don't know anything about it. And if David Fincher was at one point attached to direct it, that means it has serious potential to be made, so maybe it will get made at some point. We'll keep our eyes on it. Thanks for putting that on my radar, Master. I appreciate that. All right, some dude writes, what are your opinions on porn films in terms of criticism? Could someone be critical about the filmmaking of one of them, even though it serves as a wildly different purpose other than being a good movie? Listen, honestly, I remember when I first moved to LA, one of my best friends here in LA worked in the adult film industry. They weren't a performer. They worked more in PR and office stuff and publicity and stuff like that. And I actually became quite fascinated when I first moved to LA about this whole adult industry and how vastly complex it actually is and what goes into it. And listen, the adult film industry, bring on the filthy. The adult film industry is like a $12 billion a year industry. It's as big as Hollywood, or bigger in some cases. It is crazy. the amount of money that there is in porn. It's absolutely crazy. And when you have, and by the way, I even got invited. I don't know how I got an invitation. I got invited one year to the AVN Awards that were in like Las Vegas. Again, I have no idea how I got that. I guess because I was a movie pundit. I don't know. But to go to it in Las Vegas, I've never been, but my friend who had to go there every year and do these big displays and everything. And apparently it's like a week-long massive party and whatever. But listen, when you get something that generates that much money, you got to take it somewhat seriously, even something as ridiculous as the adult film industry, right? You got to take it seriously. My only guess is this. While something like adult films would have different criteria than, say, a film we go to AMC or Regal to go watch, it will still have its criteria. Now, despite my image, I have probably not watched as much adult film as you think I have, but I don't know what that criteria would be. But clearly people who work in that industry and who have been professionals in that industry, whether it's in front of or behind the camera, will tell you that there are things you really do look for in those things. And these are the differences between truly great adult films and the ones that aren't. And I guess if you're going to be, involved in the criticism and punditry of that particular industry, those would be the things. Again, yes, different things that you would look for than you would in a movie that comes out from Warner Brothers or Disney. But nonetheless, it would still have certain criteria that you would look for, just different ones than you would in regular movies. So that's my guess. I never thought it. Listen, didn't think when I woke up this morning, I didn't think today I'm going to talk about the porn industry. So you caught me a little off guard, but that's my thoughts on that, some dude. All right, next up. Tony Rodriguez writes, I heard you say Friday that you would watch a Deadpool / old Cap YouTube video. I also heard you say a year or so ago that the 3 Spider-Man actors in one live action movie would never happen, but only in an SNL skit or a YouTube video. Well, look where we are now. It's true. I mean, listen, we live in a world. How many times have I said this in the last couple of months? We live in a world where Jamie Foxx is coming back as Elektra. No way. No way. I mean, nobody ever thought that was going to happen. And yet here we are. I still don't think that this, by the way, it should be pointed out, while I do believe, I think there is enough anecdotal evidence right now that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire will be in Spider-Man 3. It should be pointed out that has never been confirmed by anybody. A lot of us are just kind of going on the assumption that it's happening, but just to be clear, and I believe it is, but to be clear, it has never been confirmed by anybody that that's actually happening. Just putting that out there. But even from what we're hearing, it sounds like they will have very, very small appearances in it. Like this isn't going to be Spider-Man 3 starring Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire. Right? So even if they are in it, which I think they will be, even if they are, it's going to be very small. It's not going to be 2 hours of 3 Spider-Men swinging through the city and stuff like that. I mean, that's from even the sites that I like to read that are biggest on this 3 Spider-Man thing. Even they're saying it looks like it's going to be very, very, very small. So that's one thing. And that becomes much more doable, much more feasible, much more believable. It sounds like it's going to be like what Ben Affleck is going to do in the new Flash movie. Ben Affleck has it's a very small part. It's an important part, the director said, but a very small part nonetheless. And I kind of suspect, although I don't know, I have no insider information. I suspect from everything else that I'm reading, even from the biggest proponents of this, is that you'll probably see something very similar to that. Important, but small. So with Deadpool and Old Man Cap, sorry, I had a drop go down the wrong pipe. I could see a scene. Doing that, but no, I don't see a full movie of Old Man Cap. I mean, now listen, Captain America and Deadpool. I mean, Deadpool's now coming to the MCU, so anything's possible. But yeah, I still don't believe that they will ever do a Deadpool and Old Man Cap full feature film. Still don't think that'll happen. But again, we live in a world where Jamie Foxx is coming back as Electro. So what does that tell you? Who knows? All right, Ralphie's World writes, hello, John. Have you seen the new Nick Cage movie trailer, Willy's Wonderland? It looks bonkers. If you thought Jiu-Jitsu looked crazy, this is basically Five Nights at Freddy's with Nick Cage mixed with a dash of Mandy. Yeah, I was doing the last companion video I did. I was like, no, I didn't know that trailer came out. So I paused the video, went and watched it. Okay, look. This Willy's Wonderland movie with Nick Cage, if you've not seen the trailer for it, there's no other way to put it. It is an absolute Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff. It is there's no other way to sugarcoat it. There's no other way to dance around it. There's no other way to put it nicely. This Willy's Wonderland is an absolute straight up ripoff of Five Nights at Freddy's. And then they even rip off this big key line from Watchmen. You know the scene in Watchmen where Rorschach is in the prison and he says, "You don't get it. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me." Right? They rip that line off in the thing. He's not trapped in there with them. They're trapped in there with him. It's like, oh my God. So not only are you completely ripping off Five Nights at Freddy's, you're also ripping off these big key lines from other movies too. Could not believe it. But that being said, I'm going to watch it. It looks stupid bonkers. It looks crazy. Absolutely a Five Nights at Freddy ripoff. Absolutely. They should be ashamed of themselves. But I'm going to watch it. I totally will. What can I tell you? I'm totally going to watch it. All right, next up. The Paddington 3 script writes, I would love to see a Paddington 3. Hey, John and Ann. Ann is not here. You probably wrote this in when we were doing the WandaVision live action thing. Just so you guys know, when Ann and I do spoiler, the special spoiler videos, like for instance, when we would do the spoiler videos every week for Mandalorian, and now we're doing WandaVision, you don't send in questions for those using the tip link for the John Campea Show. The tip link is for questions for the John Campea Show. When we do the special spoiler reviews stuff, what you do is you use the super chat feature in YouTube. We turn on super chat just for those spoiler videos, so you can send in questions that way. That way we don't get questions meant for the spoiler videos mixed up with the questions for the John Campea Show. Just so you guys, I mean, most of our viewers understand that, but obviously you got that mixed up. But hey, that's okay. Let's answer your question anyway. With WandaVision tying into Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, what do you think is the likelihood that we could see a teaser for either film at the end of the series? Well, I definitely don't think Doctor Strange, because they're not going to be nearly into it enough to actually have a legitimate teaser for Doctor Strange. Spider-Man 3, maybe. They've already been shooting for a couple of months. Maybe. But it looks like they're going to be thematically connected, not like for instance, you don't need to watch WandaVision in order to watch Spider-Man 3. I think that's pretty clear. Kevin Feige has never done things that way. So I don't know. I'll say this. I don't think it's likely that we're going to get a Doctor Strange or Spider-Man teaser at the end of WandaVision, but it's not like supremely unlikely either. So I would say it's under 50% chance. So not likely, but I would take over like 20% chance. So not like radically unlikely. So that's kind of where I think it is right now. All right. Thanks for sending that in. All right. Frankie Gouge writes, the rare Netflix movie Wreck, the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Never heard of it. Came to my attention due to several Downton Abbey actors in it. Set in 1946, about events that occurred on a channel island under German occupation. Okay, I just give me a second. I've never heard of this. But you know, that's not surprising. That's not surprising that I've never heard of it, because Netflix never actually, you know, does a good job promoting their own content. Okay, let me see if I can even pronounce this properly. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. In the aftermath of World War II, a writer forms an unexpected bond with the residents of Guernsey Island when she decides to write a book about their experiences during the war. Never even heard of this thing. So who's in this? You said a couple of down there. Jessica Brown, Findlay, Tom Courtney, Mike. Yeah. Lily James is in it, though. Lily James. I'll watch anything with Lily James. Just straight up, I'll watch anything with Lily James. She is, everybody has their current celebrity crush. Lily James is probably, let's just put it this way. Jennifer Garner is my always celebrity crush. Jennifer Garner is my always celebrity crush. But we all go through phases, and right now I'd say current Campea celebrity crush is probably Lily James, but she's such a great actress. She can do anything too. She can be in Downton Abbey and she can be in Baby Driver. She's just got that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm not familiar with this one, but thanks for putting that on my radar, Frankie. I'd never even heard of it until now. All right, next up, Qui-Gon Gin and Tonic writes, one of two. Hey, John, I really enjoyed the out of nowhere creepy moments in the show, probably talking about WandaVision. The dinner table choking scene. I hope they tap more into that side of things. Do you think there will be consequences for Wanda reversing time? Who do you guess was the voice coming out of the radio? Will you get a new episode to watch next week? Lastly, do you have someone who goes through all the questions sent in and sorts them out for show/film specific open spoiler discussions and regular shows? Thanks. No. Well, as I just said, the way we sort out questions for the open spoiler discussions and regular shows is we use Super Chat in YouTube for the open spoiler discussions and then the tip link for regular shows. That's what we sorted out. As far as who's the voice coming out of the radio, I think it's, I keep forgetting his name. Hold a second. Always be my mate. I keep forgetting his name. I think it's Randall Park. Is that it? Hold a second. Randall Park, who is Asian Jim in The Office. Speaking of The Office, I love Randall Park. And of course he was in Ant-Man 2. I think he's so charming on screen. I think it might've been him. I think it may, because we know he's in the show. So I think that's him. And no, I do not get a new episode to watch this week. So for those of you who don't know, Ann and I, we were able to watch the first 3 episodes of WandaVision a few days before the first episode came out. So they dropped the first 2, but Ann and I have seen 3. So we've already seen episode 3. And no, they're not sending us episode 4 in advance, which is too bad. I'd love to keep 1 week ahead. But we will still be doing, on Friday, our open spoiler discussion of episode 3 of WandaVision, and we hope that you will join us then. Thanks for sending that in, Qui-Gon. All right, next up. The Wakandan Forever writes, it is really great to see creators think outside the box. R-rated Deadpool, WandaVision, and we really had Guardians of the Galaxy. All bets are off. Marvel, Star Wars crossover? No, that will not happen. Deadpool and Baby Yoda team-up film? You heard it here first. Yeah, no, but it does bring up, by the way, hold on a second. MCU, Star Wars, Patton Oswalt. If you guys have never had a chance to see it, you really do need to. There's an episode of Parks and Recreation where Patton Oswalt does this thing where he is doing a filibuster and he just goes on and on and on about his pitch for a Marvel Star Wars crossover. And it's just, this video on YouTube that I'm looking at right now is like 8.5 minutes long. You just got to go see it. You got to go see it. It's so great. It's so fun and so funny. If you really want to see something with Star Wars and Marvel crossing over, that's probably the closest you're going to get, but go listen to him passionately talk about it. He was the first guy I ever heard talk about seeing the Mandalorian armored gloved hand of Boba Fett coming out of the Sarlacc pit. You just got to go watch it. It's totally a thing to behold. All right, next up. Connie writes, I love the double meaning to some of the dialogue, like Geraldine asking how she ended up in the dark chubby and Wanda saying she's not talking. Also, interesting that Mr. Hart broke character in asking how they got there, but choked as a consequence. Well, I mean, I still don't know in talking about WandaVision if that whole choking thing was a part of the consequence. I don't know if it was. I don't know if that was consequential to anything or if it was just things going weird. You know, again, that is still one of the big things, but there are a lot of little Easter eggs and a lot of little, like you say, double entendres without it being too filthy, double entendre stuff throughout it. That could be a lot of double meaning. It's things we're going to have to keep a close eye on as we move forward. Connie, thanks for writing that in. All right. Jason the 13th writes, episode 1 of WandaVision had one of the most effective cinematic style changes I've ever seen. When Vision's boss starts choking, we go from old fixed camera sitcom look to a more traditional shots for the first time. The break in the reality of the show was insane. No, absolutely. That was one of the coolest parts. The way that they would move in and out, and mostly staying in the sitcom motif, but you could tell those moments that we were no longer in the sitcom motif. And that one scene too with the choking, one of the real big indicators is Wanda herself. Because Wanda's talking like the era of the show, but then in that moment, when she realizes, okay, she sounds very Wanda when she says, Vision, help him. Like, it was no longer in that 50s style character. It broke that character. It was outside of that character. Much like when they were outside and saw the beekeeper and she just goes, no. Like, she didn't say it like her 50s character. It was now she was saying it like Wanda. And it's those little things that really catch your attention. It's going to be interesting to see where they go from there. All right, Max Holloway needs a win. And oh my God, what a performance he put on the other night. I mean, for those of you who know, I'm a massive MMA guy, and Max Holloway put on, it's not the best fight in UFC history. There have been much better fights, but Max Holloway put on, I'll say this without reservation, the single best performance I've ever seen in an MMA fight. I mean, you know, Khabib Nurmagomedov just walks in and mauls people and whatever, but Max Holloway put on a performance like I've just never seen. He was perfection. He was absolute perfection in that ring. And that dude he was fighting might be the toughest son of a bitch I've ever seen, because that dude took a beating like I've never seen somebody take and never go down. It was nutty. Anyway, Max Holloway needs a win, writes. Wait, Nick Jonas and Frank Grillo can act? Oh yeah, Frank Grillo can act. I wasn't a fan of either one until I watched Kingdom. Now when I see any of them in anything, I get excited. I think each season is better than the last, and Paul Walter Hauser, who plays Keith, is great, and he was in Schmoedown. Yes, he was. And of course, he was just the star of that Clint Eastwood movie. I'm forgetting about the Atlanta Olympic bombing. He was the star of the Clint Eastwood movie. And of course, he was in I, Tonya, which he was fantastic in I, Tonya. He was in Black Klansman. He's been doing great. He was in Karate Kid, or Cobra Kai, I should say. He was in Cobra Kai. Seriously, his career is massive right now. Anyway, I finally watched season 1 of Kingdom. Whole bunch of people told me to watch it. I watched it. It's not bad. Certainly has its moments. But the end of the season completely bothered me. I'm not going to go, for people who haven't seen it, I won't go into it, but they do something logically that just was like, what the hell are they doing? And I gave up on the show. So yes, I tried out Kingdom. Everybody told me to try it out. And I do like Frank Grillo in it very, very much. As neat seeing, including the referee, the Iron Dwarf referee with that mustache that goes down to his belt. It's crazy. But I tried the whole first season. It's not bad, but I honestly didn't think it was all that. And then they did some really weird things at the end of the season, so I kind of ditched on it, unfortunately. Yeah, I won't be watching season 2. But there you go. That's just me. But not bad. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. I just didn't work for me the way I was kind of hoping it would work for me. I didn't love it the way some of you guys loved it. Let's just put it that way. So there's that. All right, next up. Sang writes, Rob's favorite, Variety, is saying that Ethan Hawke is joining Oscar Isaac in Moon Knight, which we talked about on the John Campea Show earlier today, possibly as the main villain, with filming supposedly starting in March. I'm trying not to hype myself up too much, but when will we see this? First half of 2022 is too hopeful. I think if they actually do start shooting in March, the first half of 2022 is absolutely reasonable. It's absolutely reasonable. Yeah. So I would suspect before May of 2022. That would be my guess. Because you got to understand, by the time you start shooting, a whole ton of work has already gone into it. I figure they'll probably have about 5 months of shooting because, a lot of movies can shoot in 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks. But this is obviously, they have more content to shoot. So I'm guessing 5 months of shooting, few months of post-production. Yeah, I think by May. They could have this thing out. I think that's pretty reasonable. And I love the casting. Ethan Hawke is an two-time Academy Award nominated actor, two-time Academy Award nominated writer. He's a fabulous actor. So adding him to Oscar Isaac in this thing, I think it's great news. So let's see how it turns out. All right, next up. Sang also writes, which Marvel TV show character do you want to see return to the MCU? Well, technically the Disney Plus. Oh, you're talking about Marvel TV, not the Disney Plus ones. Okay. Which Marvel TV show character do you most want to see return to the MCU? Would you prefer them to recast or not? Unconfirmed rumors say Charlie Cox's Daredevil is in Spider-Man 3. Yeah, that's still to call it a rumor is generous at this point. Not impossible, but it's generous to call it a rumor. He is my absolute top pick. My second is Chloe Bennett as Quake. I want nothing. I thought Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a terrible show. I want nothing. And honestly, I didn't think she was very good in it. But I want nothing from that show there other than Clark Gregg and Ming-Na Wen. I always loved Ming-Na Wen, but she's in Mandalorian right now, so she's doing good too. She's going to be in the Boba Fett show too. Other than those two, I want nothing from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU. Ming-Na Wen and obviously the great Clark Gregg. Other than those two, I want nothing from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a good question. I mean, Daredevil. I mean, look, someday we're going to get Daredevil, whether or not it's Charlie Cox. Who knows? We'll see. John Bernthal's Punisher would be one I'd like to see. Man, there's not a lot else that I really liked in Marvel TV. There was Punisher. There was Daredevil. Half of one season of Luke Cage was really good. Iron Fist was no good. Iron Fist was no good. I never liked any of Jessica Jones. I wanted to. I thought season 2 was better than season 1, but yeah, I know a lot of people love Jessica Jones. That's great. I'm not trying to yuck on anybody who's young, but that just didn't work for me. But yeah, Daredevil and Punisher would be the two that I would be up for the most. But I mean, look, Daredevil is a Marvel character. You're going to see him. So the question is, will it be Charlie Cox? We're going to see Punisher at some point. Will it be John Bernthal? These are the bigger questions right now. All right, Mark C. writes, sadly, I have WandaVision figured out. Go back and read Avengers West Coast, Darker Than Scarlet. Knowing what we've seen, that comic book, and where we are headed, the story is very transparent. Here's the thing, Mark. Never, ever think that something that's in the comic book is what they're going to do on the screen, because it's never worked out that way. Or at least it's extremely rare that it works out that way. Extremely rare. Again, we go into it all the time. Civil War, the movie, is nothing like Civil War, the comic book. There are some thematic similarities, but other than that, X-Men Days of Future Past, the comic version is nothing like the movie version. Some thematic similarities, yes, but other than that, completely different. So never think that because you found a comic book that's got something that looks like that, that means what they're going to do. It doesn't mean it's not possible. It doesn't mean you can't be right. I'm just saying be very, very cautious about being so sure. Because very, very rarely, especially does Kevin Feige ever just directly take right from the comic and just, especially narrative beats, and just bring it right in the movies. He always does his own thing to keep everybody on their toes. So we'll see, though. We will see. It's not impossible. All right, Raymond writes, based off what we know coming up with the MCU, what's your best guess about what WandaVision's post-credit scene will set up? I mean, first of all, there's nothing that says that there will be a post-credit scene. I mean, just because they do that in their movies, and they didn't do it for Infinity War or Endgame, but, no, they did do one for Infinity War. No, did they do one for, yeah, they did one for Infinity War with Nick Fury, but Endgame clearly didn't have one. And now this is our first foray into Disney Plus MCU shows. We don't know that there's going to be a post-credit scene. So I'm just simply not going to make that assumption. I'm not going to make that assumption. And by the way, it's impossible, even if we knew there was going to be a post-credit scene, which I'm not convinced there will be. I'm not saying there won't. I'm just saying I'm not convinced there will be. Until we get a better sense of the show, we're only 2 episodes in. Hell, I'm 3 episodes in, and there's still a lot we don't understand about the show. Until we get some kind of a better idea about what the main overall gist of the show is, it's impossible to try to guess what a post-credit scene might tease or set up. So for now, I'll just take a wild guess that, I don't know, it would tease WandaVision season 2. I mean, I don't know. But I just think it's far too early to take a guess as to what it might set up. That's just my feeling on it. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John and Ann. Obviously, this was sent in for WandaVision. Ann's not here. Just thought, but isn't Wanda kind of rocking the cradle? I mean, Vision is only 5 years old. Also, we should get Quicksilver back in this series, at least a version of him, right? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like, I think there's a decent chance they will, but I don't think this requires a Quicksilver appearance. But the very fact that we are kind of living in what appears to be this idyllic life idea of Wanda creating for herself to protect herself from her own grief. And she's surrounded by things she loved, growing up watching these old sitcoms in Sokovia, of the old American sitcoms. Then we see the commercials that are reflective of great trauma she's had in her life. The Stark Industries technology with the red flashing button and the warning, beep, 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 and everybody looking worried, obviously hearkening back to the Stark bomb that was, in her home, to the Strucker watch. And Strucker, of course, is the one that conducted the experiments on them and turned them into what they are. So all that kind of stuff leads me to believe that, Quicksilver, whether it's Aaron Taylor Johnson or not, Quicksilver is a possibility, because what else would she bring into that world if not her brother, the person she loved most in the world? Why not? But again, I don't think they need to do that, though. I think there's no need to do that, but they very well may, and it could be great if they do. All right, Rich F. writes, I like that the stronger the sounds of the outside world break in, the amount of color inside the world grew in the black and white shows, Bloody Hand and Helicopter, for example. Interesting to see how that continues now that the episodes are in color. Yes, it will be interesting to see, but I really don't think we're going to see it play all that much. Like, once we move into the eras, obviously the one episode was in one decade, the next episode was in another decade. Once we get into the color decades, I don't think they're going to be playing around with jumping back and forth to black and white. So that's become, in the first couple episodes, the use of color is used as a MacGuffin in a way to an indication that something is wrong in the world. Something is wrong in her world. But once we move into the color decades, I suspect we're not going to see, some things will just be in black and white. Although it will be interesting if they go that. I don't suspect that they will, but it'd be interesting to see if they go that way. All right. The author writes, did you see the silhouette of Grim Reaper's helmet in the animated intro for episode 2? Do you think that is a hint of what's to come, or just a tip of the hat? Somebody else mentioned that. I never saw it. To be honest with you, I never saw it or recognized it. And I watched the episode twice, and I never saw it or recognized it. So it may just be a coincidence. It might not even really be there. It might be one of these things where people see the face of Jesus in a piece of toast. Like, it's just, or maybe it's significant. Maybe it's a tip of the hat. I doubt they're foreshadowing anything. I don't think Kevin Feige wants to foreshadow what's coming. But yeah, and there are a lot of options still in the air on that one. All right, Data Axel writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here right now, obviously. I just wanted to know that you're I just wanted to know that you're definitely wrong about Wonder Woman 84. Just kidding. Here's my list of top 5 favorite movies ever. Number 5, Shrek 2. Shrek 2 is my favorite Shrek film, by the way. That is my favorite Shrek film. All right, Shrek 2. Number 4, Soul. Number 3, The Prom. Number 2, Toy Story 3. Number 1, Avengers Endgame. Any standout? Well, these are all good. I never did. Wait a second. The Prom. I was about to say I never saw The Prom, but hold on a second. Is that the new one? Is that the new musical? Yeah, the one with Meryl Streep. Yeah, I haven't watched it. I'll be honest with you. I've not heard good things about it. So I haven't watched it yet, but I have no intention of watching it. It didn't look like it was really going to be. I didn't think the trailers were any good, and then haven't heard good things about it. It's only got a 6 rating right now, but whatever. Absolutely. Again, Shrek 2, my favorite Shrek film. I really enjoyed Soul. Toy Story 3, I still think the best Toy Story movie, and Avengers Endgame is great. I mean, I don't even have Avengers Endgame in my top 5 comic book movies, let alone top 5 overall movies, but that's different for everybody. It certainly is a crazy experiential event watching Avengers Endgame. So thanks for sharing your list with us, Dad. I appreciate that, man. All right, next up. Luke1234 writes, I miss the Screen Junkies and Collider days when you guys would be on each other's movie fight shows. It was as if the film fan community was at an all-time high. Now it seems like everyone is doing their own thing and in their own corner of the internet. Yeah, I mean, that... I never know how much I want to go into that. I mean, Collider... I mean, who cares? Nobody wants to hear me talk about Collider. That's 3.5 years ago for me. But no, I mean, it was definitely a different era at that time because you had like Screen Junkies was going strong, and Collider was going strong, and all that kind of stuff. And now we're in a different era. You know, a lot of people will sometimes ask me, you know, what do I think I'll ever like get the old crew back together and stuff like that? No, I have no desire to do that. I think it was great for what it was. But, you know, I was on Rob's Robservations today. Rob's was celebrating his 600th episode of Robservations. So I was on there and we got into talking a little bit about modern trends with, you know, in the entertainment YouTube space with movie pundits and stuff like that. And like at the time it was fine. Like I had a panel when I was doing, normally it was 3 people, but I quite often would have 4 people on a panel when we were doing movie talk. But today I don't think that's the right way to go. I think 4 is way too many. And I think 3 should only be done once in a while. I really do once in a while, 3 is great. But I really believe that like just 2 people on YouTube having a conversation is the best way to go. And that's why most of the time it's just me and Rob or just me and Aaron. Now, once a week, we would do, as Aaron called it, No Pants Thursdays with me, Aaron, and Chris Carr. Once in a blue moon, we would do a 3-person panel with me, Aaron, and Rob. And those are great, but for the most part, I still think just 2 people is the better way to go. And yeah, but I mean, look, it was a fun era. I wouldn't go back. I'm very happy doing what I'm doing now. I love the fact that the work I do is for something that I own and not the work I'm doing for something that somebody else has owned. That's a big thing to me. But yeah, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Some are succeeding, some aren't, but there were a lot of great people that came out of that era, and I'm glad to be let's just say this. I am glad to be where I am right now, doing what it is I'm doing right now. But yeah, there was definitely fun times in that era. Luke1234, no doubt. Right, next up, The Troubles writes, hey, John, have you thought that this is a virtual world, which could, talking about WandaVision, obviously. Have you thought that this is a virtual world which could explain why Vision is alive? Don't forget, he started life as a computer program. Physical form is dead. Memory might still be alive. Toaster built by Stark Clue. Wanda makes virtual world. That is possible. That is something we talked about when we did the spoiler discussion show all the way back on Friday, which is like 3 days ago. But I think that's also too simple of an answer. I'm not sure. It is possible, but there was, somebody mentioned to me, Letitia Wright, Shuri, said that it's possible that Vision could live without the stone, but she was never able to complete that process. And so once Thanos pulled the stone out of Vision, he was dead. And there was nothing that ever indicated that he ever got uploaded, that none of that happened. Shuri was never able to finish what it was she was doing in Infinity War. So that creates a problem. But I mean, look, that is definitely one of the options on the table, Troubles. That is definitely one of the options on the table, and one that I have considered and one that we still got to keep our eye on. So let's see where they go with that. All right. Ra Palacio writes, looking at her eyes, they almost look to start welling up with tears as she looks at Wanda saying, "Stop it," as if on some level hinting Wanda is in control. Vision doesn't even move or know to move until Wanda tells him something to think about. I don't think she was looking at Wanda. In that scene where she's going, "Stop it, stop it." I think she was looking at the guy. I don't think she was looking at Wanda. So, I mean, I could go back and watch it again and maybe change my mind, but I'm pretty sure she was not looking at Wanda. She was looking at her husband going, "Stop it, stop it, stop it." And we never saw her turn her head. So I'm thinking she was still looking at him, but maybe there's a deeper meaning there. We'll have to wait and see. All right. KB writes, you mentioned AIM. AIM was on the device in the Black Widow trailer when Yelena was getting medical help. Yes. So I mentioned on the spoiler video that one of the potential things there, because we saw a guy in the beekeeper outfit, and there was an organization in the comics called AIM, and they were a villainous group of scientists, and they often wore their henchmen were called like the beekeepers. But the beekeeper, actually, when somebody pointed this out to me, and I had to go back and look at it. The beekeeper in the show actually had a sword logo on his back. So I don't know what that does. And yes, somebody else pointed out to me that in the Black Widow trailer, there is an AIM insignia on that piece of equipment. And I had never noticed that before. So that could play into something deeper in the show as we move forward, for sure, KB. All right, next up. Jonathan Atta writes, "John, you're a big-time movie director, so why don't you write 7-minute shorts for Captain America where he has a YouTube channel and he uses it as a first reaction page? Then he can react to your movie trailers and then be in your sequel, Enjoy the Weekend." Perfect idea. God, I mean, I often will find myself, as I'm sure many of you have, like fantasize a little bit, like, what if I had the power and influence of a Kevin Feige, where any idea I had about some content, I could just make happen. Like, I'm Kevin Feige and I say, you know what? I'm going to create a YouTube channel just for fun shorts and do like crazy things. I'm going to bring in Chris Hemsworth and I'm going to get in Paul Rudd to do a, Ant-Man and Thor go shopping video. Ant-Man and Thor go shopping. Why not? I would totally do that, dude. I would totally do that if I had that type of power. And I'm sure every major film fan kind of fantasizes about having the ability to snap their fingers and make that happen. All right. Thanks for that, Jonathan. Next up, Caleb writes, "I noticed while watching WandaVision that everything we see in color is red. What do you think that means? Love the show." Yeah. I mean, so like there was the red, there was the blood on the hand, there was the flashing red button, there was the red helicopter, and I'm not going to mention what else comes up in episode 3. I don't know. Some people have said the significance of that is Iron Man's armor. There are other things in the world that are red than Iron Man's armor, although that's a possibility. But I don't know. It was somebody else that pointed that out to me, Caleb, that every time we did see brief glimpses of color, it was always red. And I hadn't even thought about that at the time. So yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it will point to some deeper meaning, and maybe somebody else already has a theory for it that I don't know, but I think it probably does have a deeper meaning. And, if there is a deeper meaning, they haven't begun to tip their hand yet, but it's something we'll definitely keep our eye on, moving forward. All right. And next up we have, an anonymous viewer who writes in, "I finally saw Toy Story 4, and can I honestly say it is the first Pixar movie that I hated. Really, I thought Toy Story 4 was great. Not as good as Toy Story 3, but great. Woody's decision at the end made no sense. His entire character was built on loyalty to his owner. He randomly abandons that philosophy to clap some Bo Peep cheeks. Also, Buzz Lightyear's IQ inexplicably dropped drastically. He proved himself to be an excellent leader in Woody's absence during Toy Story 2, so him relying on the idiotic inner voice plotline to lead the toys is completely out of character." No, I completely disagree. First of all, when you really understand it, Woody comes to an existential realization that point, that purpose of his life, that he needed to be there for his kid, had now come to completion. And the existential crisis that Woody faced, that really Toy Story 4 is about, was him facing this existential crisis of, what is my purpose then? Like, I thought my whole existence was about being this, but it's not that anymore. He was now a toy that was being left in the closet. She didn't love him. He was there for her when she needed it. First, obviously, he was there for Andy as long as he needed him. And then he got passed on to a new kid, and he was there for that kid as best as he could, as long as that kid needed Woody. And that kid she didn't need Woody anymore. She had moved on from Woody. So the movie now it's not like that kid was still desperately looking for Woody every day and Woody just abandoned her. I think if there was any sense in the movie that kid still needed Woody, Woody never would have gone anywhere. But Woody had to come to the realization and embrace the fact that he was not that toy anymore. So now it was, what happens? How do you see your life? What is your life? Once the thing you thought you existed for isn't that anymore. It isn't there anymore. And part of the movie became a journey of Woody grappling with that realization. And then the third act of the film was him coming to, will then embrace a new purpose. And Toy Story 4 ends with Woody not only coming to grips and dealing with and accepting the fact that his whole life's existence about being there for that kid was no longer something that they needed him for, and then transitioning that to identifying and discovering a new purpose. And to me, that was brilliant. And I thought the Buzz stuff was hilarious. I thought that was great. I really did. He was still very much the leader, but yeah, that running joke of the inner voice I thought was great because he just thought he was taking good advice. But hey, listen, movies are subjective. Just because I thought it was wonderful doesn't mean you're going to find it's wonderful. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your opinion of it or anything wrong with mine. You had a certain experience with it and I had a certain experience with it. And we get to talk about those differences. And that's a fun thing. So thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, Anonymous. All right, next up, Philly G writes, WandaVision. I love the music. Reminds me of when I was a kid and watched those old shows. Love your show and documentary. Thank you so much for that, Philly G. And yeah, listen, the opening music, that's the great thing too, right? Every episode has its own opening music because the opening song is reflective of the decade of sitcom that they were in as they move forward. So the opening song for episode 1 is different from the opening song of episode 2. And it fits so in perfectly with those eras of shows. It's really, really great. And thank you so much, Philly G, for checking out my documentary. I deeply appreciate that, man. All right, next up. Ecto Guy writes, I was wondering if you think the neighbor Agnes, who's played by Catherine Hahn, the amazing Catherine Hahn, is really the witch Agatha Harkness, who in the comics teaches Wanda how to use her powers and also erases Wanda's memory of her children. No, I don't. And the reason I don't is because I came across something. I mean, there are definite similarities of that. There's no doubt. There's definitely, especially since you get this one shot from the trailer or from one of the trailers of her dressed up as a witch, right? And Agnes, Agatha. And then when you also understand that Agatha is like this ancient being who's been around since the age of the Salem witch trials. And has been depicted in different ways throughout the stuff. And she actually Wanda eventually actually kills Agatha, I believe, in the comics, if I'm not mistaken. But when you understand that stuff, and she was, I think Agatha was the first one to kind of let Wanda in on the whole notion that her children have bits of Mephisto in her. Anyway, all that. As I started watching the show, I don't think Catherine Hahn's character actually goes that deep. I think if anything, Kevin Feige and the showrunners are using this character to kind of be little Easter eggs of Agatha Harkness. I think they're using that for that, but I don't think this is actually Agatha Harkness. I don't think that's what we're looking at here. I could be wrong, and you could be right. That could be exactly what it is they're going for. But right now, it doesn't seem to me like that's what they're doing. Not right now. At any rate, but we'll see. We'll see. You could be right. And listen, if it does turn out, we'll go back to this chat that you just sent in and know that you were right. All right. King Artos of Monteval writes, Hey, John, I was excited to see the Many Saints of Newark. They just delayed it. I just found out they pushed the release date again to September. I don't understand. If they are not releasing the film in theaters, why did they push it back? Schedule for HBO Max release. Well, I mean, they just moved up Godzilla vs. Kong. What they want, like, listen, HBO Max and the streaming services are like any other distributor, right? They want to space out their releases. And they're going to look at it strategically and think, okay, what will give us our best bang for our buck if we drop this here or here or here or here? And if we have this other property here. So they did a little bit of shifting around. They can't just come out and drop like 4 shows at once, right? That doesn't give them long-term sustained benefit. They want to time them out. They want to space them out. And they want to release them when they think those shows can get their most attention or those movies can get most attention. And so for whatever reason, they looked at it and they felt that moving it, I think it was back to September. I think moving it back to September was the best bet. Again, that happened at the same time that they moved up Godzilla vs. Kong. So we'll see if there's going to be any other things. And I'm looking forward to it too. Many Saints of Newark, for those of you who don't know, is a prequel movie of The Sopranos, of the show Sopranos. Now, you're not going to see a young Tony Soprano. You're going to see a child Tony Soprano. Okay, that's how far back it's going. It's like Tony's not, I think the main characters are Tony's parents. If I'm not mistaken, I think they're the main characters. But I'm looking forward to it too, King Artros. I'm very, very much looking forward to that. All right, next up, Dakota writes, I know you don't like fan casting, but if they make a Gambit series for Disney Plus, I vote Dacre Montgomery. He's from the Power Rangers movie, and he was just in Stranger Things too. Dacre Montgomery to play the role. Loved him as the Red Ranger in Power Rangers, and of course Billy from Stranger Things. Can't wait to see your new studio. Thanks. I mean, my new studio is probably going to look very much like my current studio, but I'll know I'm in a different place. Again, listen, this is the thing. The reason why I don't like fan casting is because you think Dacre, who is a great kid, by the way. I met him. I had him in studio. He's really great. You think he would be a great Gambit for the Gambit that you've got in your head right now. But again, like we've seen over and over and over again, a screenplay writer can write a very different Gambit than the one you've got in your head. Like, look, we've got like Jack's Joker, Heath's Joker, Joaquin's Joker. These are all the Joker, but they're completely different characters, right? One movie, Jack's Joker was written with in a very distinct way, in a very distinct personality. Heath's Joker was written in a very distinct way with a very distinct personality. Joaquin's Joker was written in a very specific way with a very specific personality. They're completely different. And Joaquin couldn't have played Jack's Joker, and Jack couldn't have played Heath's Joker. I mean, they're just wondering. So when we fan cast, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, I've got a vision of Gambit and how Gambit should be. And I think this vision that I have of Gambit, Dacre Montgomery would be a good fit for it. Well, that's great, but we don't know. I mean, they may write Gambit in such a way, and all 3 of those Jokers I just mentioned were great Jokers, and yet they were all completely different. We don't know how they're going to write this Gambit. And it could be that the way they write Gambit, if they did do a Gambit series, that Dacre could be a completely terrible miscast. For all we know, right? So that's why I usually just go, hey, as long as somebody's talented. Dacre Montgomery is a talented kid. And so I'd be perfectly good if they announced him because he's got talent. And then I'll just leave it up to the screenwriter and the director and the casting director to determine which actor is the best fit for that. So all I can decide or really go on myself is whether or not I think the person they cast, because fit or not, you got to get somebody talented. And that's all I care about. Is it somebody talented? And if they announce Dacre tomorrow, Dakota, I'd be down for it because I think he's a talented kid. All right. Jasom writes, do you prefer to watch superhero movies that are more comedic and kid-friendly like MCU films, or do you prefer darker superhero films like the Batman films? That's a false distinction. It's a false distinction. I like watching good movies. That's it. And by the way, comedic and kid-friendly, you can't tell me that Infinity War was kid-friendly. And you can't tell me that Dark Knight isn't kid friendly. You know what I'm saying? They're both family friendly. None of them have like blood gushing out of severed throats, and none of them have explicit sex, and none of them are dropping, excessive amounts of F-bombs. They're all kid friendly. Not kid targeted, but kid friendly. And by the way, there are laughs in Christopher Nolan's Batman films. Not as many, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The tone and the style you go for does not make the quality of your thing. The tone and the style just becomes a part of the personality of your film. You still got to make a great film. Logan went one way, but it's a great film because it's a great film, not because it's dark or rated R. That's not what made it good. What's a great one? Spider-Man Homecoming was, some serious stuff in it. Yes, but joyous and exciting and all that kind of stuff. But going for that type of tone is not what made it good. Good movies are good movies. And so I honestly have no distinction in my head about whether a movie is a darker, more serious movie or a lighter hearted kind of approach, like an Ant-Man versus, like I said, maybe an Endgame or something like that. I don't, all I care about is the movie good? Does the movie give me an experience? And so, I see no distinction. That's really not anything I take into consideration. That's why when people say like, oh, the big problem with Zack Snyder's movies is they're too dark. They're too dark in tone. Don't give me that. That is not the problem. I like all those movies, by the way. They have some issues, but the issue is never the tone. Oh, you can't have a dark film. What are you talking about? Christopher Nolan's films were pretty dark, and they were great. I mean, there are a lot of, look, let's look at, you just look at some of the comic book movies that came out in 2020. You had R-rated stuff. You had not R-rated stuff. And guess what? They were just all bad. All of them were bad. So yeah, I don't see any, just to be honest with you, man, I just personally, and every single one of us is different. So every single one of us have things that are important to us and to some others it's not. For me personally, as a viewer, whether something is lighter or darker is completely irrelevant to me. All I care about is quality, and being lighter or darker does nothing to increase or decrease the quality. That's just my take. It's just the personality and the texture of the movie that plays a larger part. So that's my take on it, Jason. Thanks for asking, man. All right. Dylan's Dialogue writes, I just want to say a huge thank you to you and Rob. You both have inspired me to buy my own camera, Canon EOS M50. That's I recommended that camera recently. It's a good solid, I think it's like in the $500 range too. A good solid, little Canon, excellent video quality camera that you can get these days. I kind of compare it to the cameras that I have. I use the Sony A6400s, which I personally prefer a little bit, but they're also a little bit more expensive than those Canon. But the Canon M50 is a great purchase. By the way, they just released a Mark II, but I don't, from what I'm hearing, it's not all that much better than the M50. So that's a great buy. And beginning the process of starting my own photography business. Very nice. Your show has gotten me through a lot, and I hope to make a short film someday. Good on you, Dylan. And that's great. I love tech, and I always get excited whenever I buy a new toy. And I'm talking about even cheap stuff. Like when a new mouse shows up, like when I buy a new mouse for my computer, I get excited about that. John, the mouse was like $30. I know, but I get excited. I can't wait to take it out of the box and plug it in and use it. Or whether a new Stream Deck shows up. See, I've actually got two of these. You guys are probably familiar with the Stream Deck. I have two of them, because I have a lot of customization that I've built into them right now. So I've got that one, and I don't know if I can get this one up here. I actually have two of them. I have the XL. I just got this big one. I just got the big Stream Deck XL, and I already had the small one that I've had for like 2 years, and it just wasn't enough. So I got the XL, and I used them both. So that just showed up last week or 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get or when a new camera comes, or a new microphone, or a new monitor. I just recently got a new USB monitor, just for some extra real estate space on my desk. I mean, whenever new toys show up, I get all excited. And so I get all excited. I live vicariously through you guys, like finding out you just got a Canon EOS M50. I thought about getting one for myself. Then I realized, John, I can't justify that. I've got 4 of these A6400s, so I don't need an M50, but I've contemplated getting that camera for myself before. So good purchase, man. Do write back sometime and let me know, or even just email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com and let me know what you think of it and your experience with it. I'm excited for it. It's a good purchase too, because it's not that expensive. For what that camera does, it's really inexpensive, like around the $500 mark. And if you find you love it, then maybe you'll start getting hungry for more of the functionality. Then maybe later you invest a little bit more into one of the bigger cameras, whether it's a Panasonic or a Sony or another Canon. There's some really good options out there, but it's a good starter camera, a good serious starter camera. I'm excited for you, man. I've always thought about getting one. All right. Thanks for that, Dylan. Cassian writes, I'm curious what your thoughts are on Paul Walter Hauser. It's funny, we were just talking about him. I've seen him as Richard Jewell, Keith in the TV show Kingdom, and Stingray in Cobra Kai. I've been impressed with him. How do you feel about him as an actor and his roles? I think he's great, but honestly, his best performance, I'll say, let me see if I can pull this up here. Paul Walter Hauser. Let me see if I can just pull this up here quickly. Paul Walter Hauser, let me get it for the right movie too. Let me tell you what, Paul Walter Hauser, his best performance to me, was in the movie he did with Margot Robbie, I, Tonya. Margot Robbie and he plays Sebastian Stan's best friend in that. And he is so good in I, Tonya. And then he was also very, very good in Black Klansman and stuff like that too. But it was that movie. That's the one to me that put him on my radar, where I started to take notice of him whenever he would be in something. Because before that, I'd never really heard of him. I didn't know much about him. But once he was in I, Tonya, I then started to every time he would pop up in something, he's like, that's the guy from I, Tonya. He's great. He's good in Black Klansman. He's his character Keith in Kingdom is very good. Obviously, he had the lead in Richard Jewell with Clint Eastwood, and he's all great. But if you haven't watched I, Tonya, he doesn't have a huge role. It is definitely a smaller supporting role, but he's throughout the film. He's so good in it. He's so good in it. I highly recommend you check it out. So he's a guy I really like keeping an eye on. I like him very much so far. All right, let's see. Tommy Oliver writes, John, I hope you can handle some friendly debate based on my last question. I can't remember your last question. If only getting a good actor matters in recasting Batfleck, then John Goodman would be a great replacement, right? Not someone who brings similar aspects to the character as Ben. Again, you're only listening to half the argument. The argument that I make when saying that we as fans, all we should care about is if it's somebody who is talented, is because you and I don't actually know what they're going for in that iteration of the character. And therefore, we leave the specifics up to the people who know the script. We don't know the script. So from a fan's perspective, I can't give a real actual opinion on which actors may or may not be a good fit for the character. I need to leave that part up to the screenwriters, or to the director, the people who know the script, the director, their casting director, making those decisions, those who know intimately the character that they're trying to bring to the screen and their iteration of the character. Like I said, look at those 3 Jokers, Jack's, Joaquin's, and Heath's. They're all Joker, 3 completely different iterations of Joker. And each one had the specific right actor matched up with them. And that's because they knew the script and they knew what they were going for, whereas you and I don't know that. So from a fan's perspective, like if I was a casting director, no, then I do have a little bit more prerequisites, a few more criteria, obviously, to me than just anybody who's a good actor. But if I'm just a fan and I don't know the script and I don't know specifically what it is they're going for, then my fan casting is only based on the one I've got in my head and may be completely different from the one they're actually trying to bring to life. Therefore, from a fan perspective, all I care about is make it a good actor. That's all I care about. Make sure you cast him or her based on the talent that they have. And then once they get somebody who's talented, I leave it up to the director and the casting director to decide which actor is actually a good fit. Because I don't care who they think is a good fit. If they cast somebody that I think isn't a good actor, then getting a good fit is irrelevant if they're just not talented. But if they're talented, then I trust them with the rest of it. Again, you're interpreting my words as if I'm saying, if I'm a casting director, all I care about is whether they're a good actor. No, there's definitely a lot more prerequisites and a few more criteria and check boxes that I want to check off, but in deciding which specific actors to play that role, because I have read the script, I understand exactly what it is the director is going for and exactly what they want to have portrayed, then I can narrow it down. But as a fan, it's pointless for me to get into the specifics because I don't know what the script is. I have no idea. So at the end of the day, all I care about is, are you getting somebody talented? And I would say this: if, they have a really good gifted director on a movie and they decide to cast John Goodman, who is a great actor, then I'm going to have to believe that the Batman they've got written in their script, even though it's inconceivable to me, but however they've written that Bruce Wayne character, John Goodman must be the best fit. And I just don't know it yet because I haven't read the script. So anyway, that's what I mean, is that the only thing that matters to me is it a good actor when they cast. Before I see the movie and they're just announcing casting, all I care about is, did they get a talented person? Because I don't know the script. I don't know which actor would be the best fit for this. Nobody thought Heath Ledger was the right fit to play Joker when he got cast. Nobody did. The Brokeback Mountain guy, nobody thought he was the right fit. Well, none of us had read that character. None of us had read the script. We didn't know exactly what it was they were going for, and we hadn't sat in a room to see how Heath Ledger could actually be the one to bring that out the best. And then once we saw it, we were like, yep, Christopher Nolan knew what he was doing. Yes, he did. And listen, they don't always get it right. They definitely don't always get it right. But as long as we're in the position of the fans who don't know the script and don't know the specifics of the iteration of that character that they're trying to manifest, then you and I haven't got the slightest clue who the best fit actor would be. We simply don't have the slightest clue. Like somebody else just wrote in about Zachary Montgomery as Gambit. Yeah, in certain versions of Gambit, he'd be a very good fit, but another version of Gambit might be a terrible miscast. So all I care about is if they announce they did cast him, I'm going to go, well, is he a good performer? Yes, he is. Great. Then I'll just trust that they know that he's a good fit for it. So that's kind of my take on that, Tommy. All right, next up. Fotfom writes, The Mandalorian had me excited to see what happens next. WandaVision has me more excited because I have no idea what's happening. I mean, that's one of the great things about these slow burn stories, right? It's like they clearly set up that something is wrong. You're in this big idyllic world, but something is wrong. And we're not quite there. We don't know what's coming. We knew a Jedi was coming. We knew he was going to run into Ahsoka Tano. We knew it, but it's still great and it's awesome and it was wonderful to watch. But yeah, with WandaVision, we've got that extra little added layer of we have no idea what to expect. And that's kind of fun. You don't get that very much in DC or Marvel movies, like where you just literally have no idea what to expect is going to come next, right? And we're not used to that with these big comic book properties from either DC or from Marvel. And so to kind of have that in such as a weird, different kind of show, I find kind of exciting personally. Again, I'm not in love with WandaVision yet, but I'm enjoying it. I've been entertained by it. And I do find myself very excited to see where the next stages are going to be. All right, next up. The Wakandan Forever writes, What's in the box? What's in the box? 7. Oh no. Or is that WandaVision? It's getting creepy. P.S. John, I always write in the Wakandan Forever. I have noticed a few times there have been someone writing in as Wakanda Forever. I guess I have a fan. Maybe, whatever. But yes, that's the thing. When you have something that's kind of serious and then something creepy happens, oh, that's a creepy thing. When you have something so light and jovial like 1950s sitcom, and then all of a sudden something very dark and creepy happens, it just accentuates how dark and creepy that feels. Like the choking scene with the stop it scene. It's like, It came out of nowhere in the middle of this 1950 sitcom, and all of a sudden, really weird, really serious, and it just accentuates the effectiveness of that. All right, next up, Sam Reel writes, with everyone on planet Earth being casted in Spider-Man 3, I am curious to how they will address Peter's identity being exposed. With all this multiverse stuff and the connection to WandaVision and Doctor Strange, how is Peter going to clear his name? I mean, listen, it very well could be that this movie starts with that already being taken care of. I mean, again, when you look at the ending of Iron Man 3, and then we pick up in Age of Ultron, you're like, wait a minute, what happened between there and there that all of a sudden Tony is flying around as Iron Man again? They just deal with it off camera. I said this as soon as I saw Spider-Man 2. In the first couple of shows I did after Spider-Man 2, I said, there is a very real possibility. And I'm not saying this is what they're going to do. I'm just saying there's a very real possibility that that whole secret identity thing gets dealt with off camera. Like it could start, I mean, we could see a news piece being played on a TV in the background of government agent Nick Fury talking about, no, we have established that the Mysterio thing was a hoax. This Peter Parker kid is not Spider-Man, and blah, 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 blah. You know, they could just use the one Skrull guy to, you know, take on the form of Peter while Spider-Man's flying around. I mean, and they could literally just address it that quick, and then it's done. Or it could be a major plot point of the movie. I think there's a good chance for both. I think it could go either way. I'm just saying, don't be totally shocked if Spider-Man 3 starts with that problem of his secret identity being outed already being fixed. They have done stuff like that, maybe not to this extreme, but they have done stuff like that in the MCU already, and I would not doubt it at all if they did it again. That's just kind of my take on it, Sam. All right, Seth L. writes, hello, everyone. I read the plot synopsis for the new Mortal Kombat film, and they confirmed that Louis Tan is playing an original character with an unknown origin. This got me thinking, over under 30%, that he will be a descendant from Scorpion. Thanks. Well, no idea. No idea. By the way, have they said Scorpion's not in it? I know Sub-Zero's in it because there was an image of Sub-Zero. I'm just assuming Scorpion's going to be in there. Hard to tell. I suspect we're going to get a trailer for Mortal Kombat this week. I don't know that. Nobody from any studio told me that. I'm just speculating. But I suspect we're going to get I really do suspect that we are going to get a trailer this week. We already had a bunch of those images drop. We are getting closer to its release date. I think we're going to get a trailer this week. And once we do get a trailer, Seth, then we're going to start to get those questions answered. I'm still a little bit skeptical about Mortal Kombat, to be honest with you. I'm okay with the movie having a first-time director. And a movie like Mortal Kombat's a good movie for a first-time director. It's not overly huge. It's not the biggest budget. It's not a massive blockbuster kind of project. It's a good-sized movie for a first-time director. I'm also not all that nervous about a first-time writer. What I am a little bit nervous about is having a major motion picture where it is both a first-time director and the writer, it's the first time they're having a script turned into a movie. That makes me a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie. But I think a really good trailer could do a lot to ease my anxiousness about it, I guess. So I'm looking forward to seeing that first trailer. And then I think we'll get some answers, Seth. I think that's where we'll get some answers. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Seth. Playmaker writes, hey, John, I'm a lifelong Atlanta Falcons fan. You've had some good years, man. I mean, they did have that part where they fell apart against the Patriots in the Super Bowl, but you've had some very good years with Matty Ice, man. And I wanted to hear what your opinion is of our new GM and head coach combo. Do you think it's a good choice, or are we doomed again? I'll be honest with you, other than Saul going over to the New York Giants and what was the other one? I really haven't been following the coaching carousel very much. Like, I know the 49ers defensive guy just went over to the Jets. That's one everybody talked about. We got the old Ohio State coach, Urban Meyer, is going to Jacksonville. I remember that. I don't remember I haven't been following closely with the Atlanta situation. So I will have to get back to you on that. I don't remember that one off the top of my head. I've been more concerned about the games, to be honest with you right now. The games, getting ready to move, keeping up with my show, all that kind of stuff has kind of gotten in the way. So I'm not quite familiar, but I do know this. I think when you look at guys like Julio Jones and, well, you're looking at Matty Ice, it's almost time. It's almost time for them to go through a real rebuilding stage. And listen, I'm not saying Matty Ice isn't still a really good quarterback, but, and honestly, if you just look at his numbers, Matt Ryan's numbers this year are not bad. I mean, really. But I think it might be time for them to kind of rebuild. But, and you know, what better time to do it than when you're bringing in a fresh, brand new GM and new coach. So there's that. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Playmaker. Next up, Gus writes, 1 of 3. Good day, Mr. Campea. My name is Gus. Oh, here we go, Gus. I own a little family gas station, and in my free time, I run a movie blog website bringing people my biased opinions, clickbait headlines, unhonest movie reviews, and totally fabricated showbiz rumors. I must, however, object to you constantly slandering and criticizing my work. I don't care for you. I've never said an ill word about you. I actually kind of like you and respect you, but if you don't stop the hate campaign of yours, I will send my cousin Vinny, a little movie reference there, and his biker gang pals to teach you a lesson of manners. Gotta live this life, gotta look this world in the eye, ride or die. Oh, and by the way, thank you for everything else you do, you know, except for slandering me, Gus. Of course, so once in a while, for those of you who don't know what Gus is talking about, when I am trying to draw a distinction, like when a rumor comes out, I will often make a distinction between legitimate, real news sites from everybody else, like fart farmers like me, like little YouTubers and other bloggers and things like that. And when I'm illustrating the difference between real legitimate news sites and entities like mine and others, I will often make up this fictitious website that I call Gus's Gas Station Movie Reviews.fart. You know, it's like, come on, guys, this is coming from Deadline, not Gus's movie reviews, not Gus's Gas Station Movie Reviews.fart. And that's often the thing I often use to make a distinction when, you know, some random, like, sounds too good to be true rumor comes out. It's like, well, where did it come from? Did it come from one of the legitimate sites? From The Hollywood Reporter, from Variety, from Deadline, from Entertainment Weekly, from what did it come from one of those places that have actual, real, decades long and cultivated inside studio contacts and resources that they get all these real legitimate stories from, where they have actual journalistic standards of getting 2 sources, double checking the facts, making sure everything's accurate before going to press and reporting it and blah, blah, blah. Or does it come from a site like Gus's Gas Station Movie Reviews.fart? Or some, like I said, fart farmer YouTuber like me? You know, you got to understand that and weigh that when the information comes out. And so I often use that. So that is what Gus is. So thanks for writing that in, Gus. That was actually really fun. Thanks for sending that in, dude. All right, next up. James Saunders writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here right now, obviously. I was thinking about the Chris Evans news and Black Panther 2. Do you think it could take place during the 5 years between AIF and Endgame? That's Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. I think that would help solve the Cap being gone from the timeline and no T'Challa. Thanks. Thoughts? I don't know. I certainly don't like the idea. I don't like the idea. But it does, I mean, because I like stories moving forward, right? That's just me. I like stories moving forward. I'm not a big fan of prequel stuff. Not that there have been prequel things that I haven't really enjoyed. There have been. There are definitely some exceptions. But for the most part, I like stories that move forward. That's just me. But you're not wrong. Setting a movie in Wakanda during the 5-year gap in between Infinity War and Endgame does solve 2 problems. Number 1, it solves the problem about how is Captain America back? Because he was still around during those 5 years. And, why isn't T'Challa there? Because T'Challa was gone during those 5 years before he came back in the portal scene after Hulk snapped them all back into existence. So, you know what? The more I'm thinking about it, James, the more I'm thinking about it, that may not be such a bad idea. I mean, Captain America, who became a staunch friend and ally of King T'Challa, is called upon by, whatever Wakandan government is still there to help them during their transition period as they need to appoint a new ruler, a new king or queen, and need his help in also doing that because he was a trusted friend to King T'Challa. And since King T'Challa had already instituted a transition of opening up Wakanda to the rest of the world, that maybe the Wakandan governance thought it might be a good idea to bring in a representative from the outside world in to help us with this. And who better than Captain America? You know what? I'll tell you what. Okay, look, I don't know if that's what they'll do. I don't know if that's what they'll do. But when I first read your question, I was like, nah, because I don't like prequels. But the more I'm thinking about it, it could make totally perfect sense. It could absolutely make total perfect sense. I'm not saying I'm sold on it yet, but it's not a bad idea. And there's so much that is unknown about that 5-year gap, right? Other than the fact that the world is in a very, very rough place, obviously. And we see that at the beginning of Endgame, just how, hard it is in the world. Maybe, James. Maybe. I'll keep my eyes on that. Thanks for sending that in, man. All right, Playmaker writes, over under on Doctor Strange appearing at the end of WandaVision and telling Wanda, you have effed up the multiverse and I need you to help me fix it. Probably also the person Bettany wanted to work with. Also, I think Agnes is definitely behind things. It's hard. I wish I could say some things, but I can't because I've seen episode 3 and you guys haven't. Let's just put it this way. We're definitely going to have a lot to talk about. Once you guys see WandaVision episode 3. And so we'll talk about that on Friday, on Friday's open spoiler show with me and Ann, but we'll get to that. As far as Doctor Strange showing up, I doubt it. Because what we know, and I'm saying doubt, I'm not saying I know that doesn't happen. I don't know. It's possible. Here's why I doubt. I doubt because Kevin Feige has told us that WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, and Doctor Strange 2 are kind of one story arc. Spider-Man 3 is the one that leads into... Spider-Man 3 comes out before Doctor Strange 2. Spider-Man 3 is the movie that will lead into Doctor Strange 2, not WandaVision. And so I don't see them skipping that step and somehow now Doctor Strange is involved at this point. I mean, but you never know. It's definitely one of the possibilities that's on the table, Playmaker. It's certainly not an impossibility. So let's see how that unfolds. Anyway, the other stuff, though, about Agnes, again, wait till you see episode 3 and then let's have a discussion. All right, next up. Call of Duty God sends in a $20 tip. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, dude. I appreciate that, man. He writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John. I feel nauseous asking this question, but what if the movie gods gave us a chance to have the GOAT, Steven Spielberg, direct a Star Wars movie, but the story arc or main subject was about the Jedi lore and how midichlorians have a big part of what makes Jedi who they are, and Jar Jar Binks is in it significantly. Over under 1%, it would be good or great. I feel like I just disrespected the GOAT, but I had to ask you the question. Have a great day, John, and I loved your documentary. Oh, thank you so much for that, Call of Duty. I appreciate that, man, very much, and thank you for supporting our channel on that level, man. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you liked the movie, dude. It makes me happy that you enjoyed it. That's a big question. Listen, the one thing as a movie fan that I have always wished I could have was a Steven Spielberg directed Star Wars movie. I mean, he already did a little bit of directing, and I believe it was Revenge of the Sith that he actually kind of uncreditedly directed some of the action stuff in it. Of course, we know his lifelong relationship and friendship with George Lucas. He is I believe, the greatest filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg. I've always wanted a Steven Spielberg directed Star Wars movie. Always wanted it. I don't think he'll ever do it, Unless George Lucas came out one day and said that he completely blesses that idea. And if he does, great. But I don't see that happening. But it would have to be about midichlorians and Jar Jar Binks. Hard pass. Hard pass. Now, that said, I always say that it's not about the premise, it's about execution. If you can make a Lego movie a great movie, it's not about premise, it's about execution. So I'll say this, if anybody has the filmmaker mutant powers enough to take a premise that involves midichlorians and Jar Jar Binks and make something watchable out of it, it's Steven Spielberg. If anybody can do it, it's him, because it's not about the premise, it's about the execution. But some premises either give you a head start or they make you take 3 steps backwards when you start. This is a premise that would be making you take 3 steps backwards, so I'd probably have to take a hard pass. But thank you for that theoretical situation, Calder. And again, thank you for checking out my movie, man. I really do appreciate it. All right. Night Vision writes, WandaVision was slow/boring that I kept checking my phone every 5 minutes. I love sitcoms from Lucy, Genie, Bewitched to Modern Family, Big Bang Theory, but WandaVision was more cringy than funny and not mysterious or intriguing enough to continue. Disappointing like Wonder Woman 84. And listen, Night Vision, you're not completely alone in that. I've heard from other people that that wasn't their cup of tea, and I'm not surprised. Listen, whenever a filmmaker or a storyteller or a franchise or a cinematic universe, whatever, tries something very, very different, it will never be for everybody. Like we always say, we want our filmmakers and storytellers to do something really different. Don't play it safe. Do something really different. Okay, you just got to accept, though, that when they do something really, really different, that pretty much almost means by definition, it's not going to be for everybody. And I totally get it. Them going in that direction isn't going to be for everybody. And there's nothing, if it didn't work for you, there's nothing wrong with that. All I can tell you, since you're asking me, is that my experience was different than yours. And like my wife's experience was totally, like I haven't seen my wife with that big of a smile and laughing that much during episodic television ever. I've never seen her that filled with just pure delight the way she was watching that show. She was, and she didn't give a crap about any of the MCU-ness of it. She just thought that show was hilarious and charming, and she had this big fool grin on her. She was like sitting cross-legged on the couch and leaning forward, holding onto a blanket and smiling and giggling and laughing and just eating it up. She loved WandaVision, those first 2 episodes. Loved them. I enjoyed them. I didn't like them nearly as much as my wife did, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was really clever and charming, and it worked for me. I didn't find it boring in the least. I thought it was really good. But again, that's the beauty of the subjectivity of that, right? We're all going to have different experiences with it. It'll work really well for some, won't work for everybody. And I respect that it didn't work for you. I have a feeling it's going to grow on you more and more as the show develops, because they're going to get into different things. But even that, you don't know for sure. But hey, man, thanks for sharing your thoughts on it. I appreciate that different perspective on it, Night Vision. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. All right. Paddington's Marmalade writes, speaking to the WandaVision Agnes/Agatha Harkness theory, most of Catherine Hound's costumes included a brooch very similar to the one Agatha has in the comics, always wears. Also, in the Halloween episode, Agatha is dressed as a witch. Agatha is a witch. If it looks like a witch and smells like a witch, she's a witch. Anyway, if it's a duck, she floats. Therefore, if she floats, she's a witch. Anyway, I'm sure I'm not quoting that exactly right, but you guys know what that's from. Anyway. Yeah, I was pointing that out earlier. Like when we see her in the car and she's talking to Vision, and she's like, am I dead? Why on earth would you ask that? Because you're dead. And then she's wearing the black hat and the black witch outfit. Right? Again, I think that's more Easter egg-ish, and that's more wink. I doubt we're going to find out she is the ancient witch Agnes from before the era, before Atlantis sank. I don't think this is going to be her. I think there's more to it, but I think there's going to be some winks to that. But again, it could be. And again, Paddington, you're not the only one who thinks it. So let's see how that turns out. All right, next up. Dr. Film writes, hey, John. I don't know if you know this, but Warner's just released a small 30-second teaser saying HBO Max deal is still happening. I still feel like some of them will change, like Dune or King Richard, but what do you think? I'm not quite sure what it is I'll be honest with you, Dr. Phil, I'm not sure what it is you're talking about. Warner just released a small 30-second teaser saying the HBO Max deal is still happening. I don't know what deal it is you're talking about. I still feel like some of them will change, like Dune or King Richard, but what do you think? If you're talking about the fact that they're still moving ahead with, releasing all their 2021 films on HBO Max, yep. If that's what you're talking about, and I'm not quite sure if it is or not, but if it is, yeah, they're still saying that. Now, we'll see what happens. Look, there's a lot of different things that can happen here. One, what Variety was speculating, what they're saying could very well happen and may very well happen, and says that they're already talking about it, is that they will have to, that Warner Brothers will ultimately cave to Legendary, and that Legendary will get Dune put in theaters first for an exclusive run, and then later it'll go on. And that's what the Variety article was saying. And I still suspect that's what's going to happen, but they haven't reached that deal yet, so they're still promoting. King Richard also presents an interesting problem for Warner Brothers because Will Smith's contract specifically lays out in his deal that would be a theatrical film that had a traditional theatrical release and then go to streaming. That's specifically in his contract. So that's going to be a problem for Warner Brothers with King Richard. That doesn't mean there aren't ways around it. Like, listen, if you had a contract with me that said, okay, I will lend you my glasses. Okay. I'll lend you what's the word I'm looking? I'll lend you my Gunnar glasses, and you can use them for a week while you go on vacation. In exchange, you have to give me a puppy. You're going to give me your puppy. That's the deal we make. We put it in a contract. Now you come back and you decide, you know what? No. You know what, John? I like this puppy too much. I don't want to give you the puppy. We have a contract. You took my glasses away for a week, and we have a contract that says if you take my glasses for a week, I get your puppy. But you could come to me now and say, okay, I tell you what, how about I give you $100 million, John Campea? How about I give you $100 million for you to let me out of that clause in our contract? You let me out of the clause that says I'm supposed to give you my puppy. If you will let me out of that clause, I will give you $100 million, in which I will say, keep the damn puppy, give me that cheddar, right? That could happen here too. Yes, Will Smith has a contract, but Warner Brothers may be in a position that they can offer him something that he would consider worthwhile giving up his rights in that contract and therefore letting it go straight. So there are deals to be made. I still suspect Dune is going to get out of it, though. I think Legendary wants Dune in a traditional theatrical release. But again, Warner Brothers could say, tell you what, Legendary Pictures, who paid for the movie, we'll give you all the money back that you paid for the movie, and we'll give you $300 million on top of that. How do you like that? In which case, what Warner Brothers would never make that deal. That's too expensive for them. But if they did offer that deal, Legendary would say, sold, done, right? So there are still problems they got to work out, but there are deals to be made, and we'll just see how they kind of work themselves out, Dr. Film. All right, next up, Captain Blue Pants writes, 1 of 3. I love the scene in Age of Ultron between Hawkeye and his wife, where he says, you don't think they need me? And she says, I think they do, and that's a lot scarier. I know it's an ongoing joke option to shit on Hawkeye and Black Widow for having no powers and being useless, but imagine how brave you have to be to battle with and against people that are basically infallible without superpowered confidence. Everything isn't about power. A good team needs a range of skills like wisdom, strategy, leadership, etc. And in Hawkeye's case, emotional intelligence. He took Wanda under his wing, excuse the pun, and was like a mentor to her. Hardly anyone talks about that. Sorry, the useless tag they get bothers me a lot. Now, to me, listen, it's not a matter of them being useless, right? Batman is an individual with no superpowers, right? Is Batman useless? Absolutely not. Batman is Batman, and he'll kill the whole Justice League before they even wake up from their nap. Batman's Batman. To me, the thing about, I love this Hawkeye character. I think this Hawkeye character is great. I think the Black Widow character is great, but I think they're great in supporting roles. I think they work really well and add a lot to the movies they're in supporting roles. But I'm not going to lie to you, I don't have a lot of interest in them as standalone movies. See, I have interest in them exactly the way you just described them, what they bring to a team environment. And that's why I love Hawkeye in the Avengers movies. I love Hawkeye in the MCU. What Black Widow brings to the table. I love her in Winter Soldier and the Cap movies and Avengers. I think what she brings in those environments is excellent and really adds to the movies. But I just don't know that I'm going to enjoy them in solo movies. I don't know that I'm interested in them in solo movies. I like them the way you describe them, right? Now, that doesn't mean that Black Widow can't be fantastic. It might be. In which case, I'll love it. I mean, that'll be great if it is. Can't mean that the Hawkeye show won't be fantastic. Maybe it will be. And if it is, great. I just have a little bit of reservations about it. I don't see those characters as solo standalone characters. I see them much better being utilized and really being effective in ensembles. But we'll see. We'll find out soon, Captain Blue Pants. We'll find out. They're already, Black Widow's coming out eventually. They're shooting the Hawkeye series right now, so we'll know soon enough how this all works out. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, man. All right. Marie Seafring writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob is not here right now. How Ghibli are you about the Hollywood Reporter news that Ethan Hawke will play a villain opposite Oscar Isaac in Moon Knight? I love the show. Thank you so much, Marie. Listen, Rob was obviously not on my show earlier today. He had things came up that he had to go and take care of. But he is very excited. And why wouldn't you be? They went out and they got an actor of the level of Oscar Isaac to be the lead. And then they weren't done. They went out and got an even better actor. And I think Oscar Isaac is great, but they went out and got an even better actor in Ethan Hawke, a 2-time Academy Award nominated actor. 2-time Academy Award writing, a writer he's got 4 Academy Award nominations. He's an exceptional performer. And to see him as a villain in something like this, I think is going to be absolutely delicious. I think it's going to be delicious. And there are some people who are still holding on to sour grapes because a bunch of years ago, Ethan Hawke said some things that he didn't care about comic book movies. He didn't have about comic books and comic book movies and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? Get over it. Get over it. He's seen comic book movies get better and better and better and see characters are treated with a lot of respect and given a lot of depth. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, these are really good. I'll be a part of that. So I just think people who just carry this baggage just need to get over that. But whatever. I think it's excellent news. And whenever you add, like I always say on the show, it is never a mistake to add talent. And they just added massive talent by adding Ethan Hawke. And I think he's going to be spectacular. I think he's going to elevate this. I think his performances always elevate the material he's playing. And I don't think Moon Knight will be an exception to that. So thanks for adding that in, Marie. Appreciate that. All right. Watch Kim's Convenience. Absolutely. Everybody should watch Kim's Convenience. It's amazing. Writes in, to those saying Ahsoka isn't a Jedi, her episode of Mandalorian is literally titled The Jedi. That is a great, see, when people say to me that, Ahsoka, John, technically speaking, Ahsoka's not a Jedi. She said in that one episode, I'm not a Jedi. I mean, yeah, I get that. She's a Jedi. I don't care if she tore up her membership card or not. She's a Jedi. It's just that simple. And what I normally go to is when Mando says to her, a Mandalorian and a Jedi working together, right? She doesn't correct him and say, oh, actually, Mr. Mandalorian, sir, I'm actually not a Jedi. No, he says a Jedi and a Mandalorian working together. Look at that. But I totally forgot about that. You're absolutely right. Literally, the title of the episode is The Jedi. That is literally the title. You're absolutely, that is a better argument than mine. My argument has always been, hey, Mando says to her, hey, a Jedi and a Mandalorian. And she doesn't correct him. But you're right. The title of the episode is the much better argument. Well pointed out, Kim's Convenience. All right, Kara Black writes, I find it weird that Disney would send you early episode links for WandaVision, but not the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian as well. Wait, what? Not the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian as well. Do you mean it's weird that they sent me the first couple of episodes for WandaVision, but they didn't send me the first couple of episodes for Mandalorian each season? Is that what you mean? If that's what you mean, yeah, I guess that's a little strange. Look, the reality is this. I don't request early stuff anymore. I haven't for a while. I don't request. I stopped requesting to go to, well, here's what happened. Years ago, I stopped accepting invitations to go and be a part of press junkets. Those things where you get to go and you get to sit down in a hotel room with the stars of a movie and talk to them literally for 3 minutes. You literally get 3 minutes. Where you go literally give up half a day to go and sit in a room with some stars of a movie for 3 minutes, then sit around and wait for 45 minutes to go do your next 3-minute interview, and then go and sit around for another hour to go and do one more 3-minute interview with the next star of the movie and stuff like that. I used to do those all the time. I used to go to those all the time. And at first I thought it was really cool. It's like, oh my God, I'm sitting in a room with, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson. Here I am. And I got to do that a few times, and that was fun. But then you realize I'm literally giving up my day and driving for hours just to sit in a room with this for literally 3 minutes and not even having like real conversations. Every once in a while, I would get lucky, like my one interview with Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth, where because they were doing stuff with cameras, I was literally in that room with them for like 15 minutes. And that's one of the most hilarious things I've ever been a part of ever. But I just started realizing this isn't a good use of my time. And so I started declining invitations to go to these junkets. And what I started doing was I started giving my other staff opportunities to go and cover those junkets, because like me at first, they were very excited about the idea of doing that. So, hey, you want to go to this? Great. Boom. And then I started declining set visit invitations, which is why, John Schnepp was the first thing I got to offer John Schnepp. I got the invitation to go and do an Age of Ultron set visit. And I said, I wasn't interested in going. So I said, hey, Schnepp, do you want to go? And he was like all excited. It was his first big set visit from a journalistic point of view. But I still went to all the press screenings and stuff like that because I like going to movies. But eventually, and normally you got to also request, the screening invites. Once I started doing the John Campea Show, I slowly but gradually started turning down some screening invites, and not all of them. Some I still absolutely took advantage of, and some I still do. But I would never respond to like invites to early screening opportunities for streaming shows or things like that. And I just never requested early access to Mandalorian. I never requested it for WandaVision either, but somehow, some way, they still reached out and said, hey, do you want to watch this early? So I said, sure. And I'm totally glad I did. I really enjoyed. My wife completely loves WandaVision. Good God, she loves that thing. But yeah, it's an interesting business. It's an interesting business that I am becoming more and more detached from, just because I just can't be bothered. I just can't be bothered. But yeah, and you know what? At the end of the day, I'm really glad that I never watched the Mandalorian episodes in advance. I mean, I don't know. Like if they invited me to watch like the Book of Boba Fett early or watch the first couple of episodes of Mandalorian season 3 earlier, I would probably take them up on it. But I probably won't request it. I don't know. It's weird. It's just kind of weird that works. It's a weird, interesting little business, Kara. It's a weird, interesting little business. All right, next up. R. Lee writes, with Godzilla vs. Kong moved up 2 months, I rewatched Kong Skull Island. There was a scene when they walked upon Kong's parents' remains in World War II. The World War II pilot explaining those were Kong's parents. Kong is just a kid. Maybe used to explain size difference. Oh, no. They were very explicit about that. When they first announced Godzilla vs. Kong and they brought on the director, they were very specific to point out, hey, listen, Kong is still growing. Because, understandably, a lot of people, wait a minute, the Kong we saw in Kong Skull Island is big, but he is much smaller than the Godzilla we have seen. How is that going to be a fight? And they were very quick to point out, Kong isn't finished growing. Kong isn't finished growing. So yes, your theory, Arlie, is absolutely correct because they specifically laid that out. And so, yeah, now we're fast forwarding a bunch of years and Kong is a much bigger boy now. And I am, by the way, I love Godzilla, but I am Team Kong in Godzilla versus Kong. I am Team Kong. So your theory is right. All right, next up. Wanted Alive writes, hey, John, loved WandaVision. I think they are living in virtual reality. Agent Carter was set in the 50s. Maybe it's Vision's memories and his world we are seeing through virtual reality and we going through his history. But who created it is the question. Keep up the good work. Well, listen, this is clearly not reality. Where WandaVision is happening is some form or variation of virtual reality, but is it magically a virtual world? Is it a magical virtual world? Is it a scientifically Matrix kind of virtual world? Is it's some version of that. The question is which version of it? Is it an altered state reality, virtual reality? Is it, who knows? Obviously, it's not quote unquote real. Because there are moments that Wanda and Vision both recognize this is not right. And then Wanda even breaks character and goes, no. And backs things up and reformats it in a way that is better for her. Vision, help him. And kind of takes control of the environment that they're in. So how they're going to do it is a big question. But just saying VR, are you specifically saying it's literally a computer-induced VR? Well, again, I can't say too much. Wait until you see episode 3. Wait until you see episode 3, and I'll leave it at that one. But I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. All right, next up. Dean Dillon writes, hey, John, one of two. What do you think of the new Marvel Studio intro that came up on WandaVision? Just a random question. If they make another Predator movie, should they make it on Yautja? Is that the movie where the other one happened? Prime, and show backstory of the Predators. We'll talk about that one. I take one question at a time, man. If that is the planet where the one Predator, I think it was called Predators, the one where they take humans and bring them to this game reserve planet where they get to hunt them instead of hunting them on their own native world like Earth, they bring them to this game reserve planet. That was not a bad movie. I think it was called Predators. Let me just look that up to know for sure. Am I right? Is it Predators? Is that the one with Adrian Brody? Yes, it is. I like that. A group of elite warriors parachute into an unfamiliar jungle and are hunted by members of a merciless alien race. Turns out they're on an alien world the whole time. Adrian Brody, I forgot Topher Grace was in that. Alice Braga, Walton Goggins, Oleg Taktarov, one of the original UFC badasses. Lawrence Fishburne, Danny Trejo. It's a good cast. Mahershala Ali is in there. I like this movie. I mean, it's not a great movie like the first Predator movie, but this is probably the next best Predator movie there is. Any movie that involved a Predator. This is probably the second best one. I enjoyed this one. I like this one. I think it's pretty fun. Now, I cannot remember if that's the name of the planet that they're on in this one or not. I'm just going to assume for a second, and maybe I'm wrong, that it is. If it is, I'd be down for it. Again, the latest Predator movie directed by Shane Black, and I love Shane Black. I'm a big Shane Black fan. That Predator movie that he just did was terrible, though. I was so excited for that movie. The cast was great. Just an awful movie. Still a big fan of Shane Black, though. I'll watch anything that dude makes. But I guess I'd be down. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not super excited about the notion of any Predator movie right now, to be honest. But who knows? Maybe another good one could totally change that around. Thanks for writing that in, Dean. All right, next up. Shaun of the Dead writes, late to the party on Wonder Woman, a bulletproof issue, but how could she not be after taking a headbutt from Superman in Justice League? If she wasn't invulnerable, wouldn't that have killed her? I mean, listen, we're talking about fairy tale make-believe creatures that have totally different biologies that don't necessarily work the way our real world rules work. Like, listen, too, there are some action films, right, where, let's say a super-powered villain, whether it's a robot or something, hits the hero and the hero goes smashing through a brick wall and blah, blah. Guess what? If that was real, that human being that just got hit way across the room and then smashed through a brick wall, that would have obliterated every organ in their bodies on that impact. That just would have killed them instantly. They'd be dead. It doesn't matter how big and tough the opponent is that threw them through the wall. I'm not saying that a person's body can't be thrown to smash through a brick wall. If they're thrown hard enough, they can. But also the bones in that person will turn to dust and their organs will just turn into mush and they will die. So yeah, that's great. But yeah, just because she took a headbutt from Superman, that doesn't mean her skin can't be pierced by a bullet. And trying to apply real world dynamic logic to it is, I've learned, because I tried to do that myself all the time, is a little bit of folly. It's a little bit of folly. But again, I think it seems pretty clear in the movies that she has to actively, like when you get actual bulletproof characters like Superman or characters like Luke Cage or whatever, they don't bother to try to block bullets. They just walk through the bullets. Wonder Woman, they actively show she constantly has to block the bullets. She must block the bullets. We've never seen a bullet actually hit her. And then the one time it does hit her, it cut her. Some people say, well, that's because she was losing her power. I say no. The fact that she was losing her power is not what made her skin vulnerable to being broken by a bullet. It's what made her unable to see the bullet coming and block it. And the very first time in any of the three movies that we see her get hit with a bullet, it breaks her skin. Every other time she has to very actively, with a lot of effort, block all the bullets. So personally, I think that's them. Now again, Patty Jenkins has never said explicitly. She has never said in the movies explicitly whether Wonder Woman is actually bulletproof. All I know is that whereas every other bulletproof character I see in movies, they just, bullets bounce off them and they turn around, look at the guy shooting bullets at them and they're fine. Or if you're Superman, the bullet, remember, this was a great shot in Superman Returns with Brandon Routh. The one guy shoots the bullet, Superman just standing there, doesn't even move. The bullet hits his eye and the bullet crumples against his eye and falls to the ground. That's an awesome shot. Whereas Wonder Woman, whether she's got to spin the lasso to block them or use her bracelets to block them or on the battlefield in the war, try to hide behind a shield to block them, she's always having to block them. We've never seen a bullet bounce off her, so that's kind of the dilemma we find ourselves in. All right, next up. Dr. Film writes, hey, John, I know why respect Netflix. I know why respect Netflix. Since their quantity over quality, this allowed filmmakers to do what they want. This gave us passion projects like Fincher's Mank and Scorsese's Irishman. I have nothing but respect to that. They made crap, but also gems. True. Yeah. But here's the problem. Long term, that approach erodes trust in your product. Let's say there was a fast food restaurant you went to, and you're a cheeseburger guy. You like cheeseburgers. And let's call this restaurant the Green Cloth Restaurant. I'm just going to call it that because I happen to have a microfiber green cloth here that I use to wipe down my glass. And 8 times out of 10, you go there, you buy a cheeseburger, and the cheeseburger, you take a bite and the cheeseburger tastes like crap. 2 times out of 10, you go there and you bite into this cheeseburger and you go, oh, this is delicious. My goodness, Agatha. This is, if your girlfriend's name is Agatha, my goodness, Agatha, this cheeseburger is delicious. But then the next 8 times you go, it's total dog shit. You bite into it, like you gag the moment you bite it. Are you going to keep going to that restaurant? Are you going to trust when the restaurant says, you know, hey, Dr. Film, we've got a cheeseburger ready. Are you going to be excited about running for that cheeseburger if 8 times or 9 times out of 10 you bite into it, it tastes like a bag of old decaying dog shit? No, eventually you're going to go, no, I'll pass. But there's a chance it might be really good. Yeah, there is a chance it could be really good, but I'll let some other suckers go and taste it first. Because 8 times out of 10, sometimes 9 times out of 10, it's completely awful. Eventually, you're going to stop going to that restaurant. I equate that to the Netflix. Now, Netflix's TV shows, totally different situation. I find it's reverse. I find 7 or 8 out of 10 out of their shows are really good, whereas maybe 1, 2, or 3 out of 10 aren't so good. That's a much better ratio. But for some reason, they're original films, and they're going to try to put out like 60 or 70 this year. Okay, so that clearly tells me, 1, you have no quality control. Number 2, you have very low standards. And number 3, you are completely going for quantity over quality, which means I'm going to skip the vast majority of the movies you put out because your ratio is terrible. Yes, once in a while we get a Beasts of No Nation. Yes, once in a while we get a Old Guard. I loved Old Guard. Yes, once in a while we get, in my opinion, the best film of 2020, Trial of the Chicago 7. Yeah, that happens. But I also wasted unspeakable numbers of hours watching absolute crap that you put out on your network. Like absolute crap. See, it's not like Pixar. Pixar that'll put out 1, now we're getting into 2 movies a year. And guess what? When they put out a movie, we're excited about going. Why? Because they consistently put out quality content. High quality content with excellence. And so the minute we know a new Pixar film is coming, not that they haven't had a stumble here and there, sure they have, but for the most part, whenever they put out content, it's excellent. And so when they announce a new Pixar thing is coming, we get excited because we know they put out good content. Netflix original films, for the most part, are utter trash. They're just garbage. Absolute garbage. And yay, once in a while they put out some really good stuff. I really wish that Netflix would adopt a philosophy of saying, look, how about instead of putting out 70 original movies this year, let's put out 20. 20 is still probably too many, but let's put out 20. Hell, let's round it out to 24. We'll say 2 a month. And let's take all that money and all those resources and all that stuff that we were going to put into those other 50 movies, and let's be more picky about which films we actually put on Netflix. Let's be more picky and choosy and have higher quality control and higher standards of excellence for what movies we greenlight and produce or acquire or whatever and put on Netflix, and say to our audience, hey, Netflix audience, thanks for being a subscriber. we present you with this piece of content. Why don't we put more effort into making sure we're delivering quality? Because I bet the results will be much better. Like, yay, you're putting out 70 movies, but listen, we already know probably 61, 62, 63 of them are going to be absolute garbage because that's their ratio. And I just don't have a lot of faith of them. And yeah, we get the odd great one, wonderful. So how about putting out 15 films this year, making sure it's only the truly good ones you put out so we as your audience can start to develop some confidence that when a new Netflix movie is coming out, it's something we get excited about just because it's a Netflix original film, and Netflix original films mean quality. That's not what Netflix original film means right now. Right now, Netflix original films means Russian roulette. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe if I choose to invest my time into watching this, maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be a good one. But I doubt it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at on that, Dr. Film. That's kind of where I am on that. Thanks a lot for writing that in, man. Okay, and next up, that was Dr. Film. Now we go to Trevor Bless Holloway. Saturday, we're blessed to watch. Saturday B, we're blessed to watch an epic main event. Max Holloway threw 746 strikes, landing 447 of them. Qatar kept coming through. What did you think of this fight and the overall card? Thanks and have a blessed day. Of course, all that blessed is Max Holloway's nickname is Blessed. From Hawaii, and he truly is. I'll tell you, I said it earlier in the show, Trevor. I'm not saying it was the greatest fight we've ever seen. We've seen better fights overall, but it probably was the single best individual performance I may have ever seen in a UFC card for Max Holloway. It may have been the single best performance I've ever seen. I mean, he just dominated. And Qatar, oh my God, the toughness on that dude. Like, that was inhuman what he was able to do. And the overall card was really good. I quite enjoyed the card. I think it was the first one they ever did on ABC, which was really cool to see. So that was nice. And now we've got this great card coming up with Diamond Dustin and McGregor. That should be a really good card from top to bottom. Good seeing Carlos Condit in there again and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a really good card, and Holloway's performance was, again, mind-bogglingly good. Mind-bogglingly good. All right, next up, we got Suthius writes, "Hey guys, not giving anything away, I personally do think some supernatural force or entity is behind WandaVision. Like we always say, the comics are the comics and the movies are the movies. If it is Mephisto, it could just be an MCU version and not the one we know in the comics." That's true too, because, you know, Mephisto is literally a demon. One of his names is actually Satan in the comic books. He's actually a demon from hell. And that is connected to, in the comic books, Wanda's kids in the comics. But you're right. That's something I hadn't really thought about, Suthius, is that this could be the MCU Mephisto, but he's not literally a demon from hell, you know? It could be something else on a different level. So you're right. I still think it has more to do with Wanda herself. I think it has more to do with Wanda herself than anything else, but there could be other things behind it. Maybe it's AIM, maybe it's Sword, maybe it's Mephisto, maybe it's Agnes. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities, but getting a very different on-screen version of Mephisto as opposed to the comics, that is one as well. I'm glad you pointed that out. Well stated, Suthius. Well stated. All right, next up. Night Vision writes, "Parallels between Wonder Woman 84 and WandaVision. Both are slow slogs and jokes come off as cheesy or cringy instead of funny. Best part of both, the score/soundtrack nailed the era and fit the on-screen action, and the heroine is hot. Worst part, slow and bad story." Again, you're not the first person to write in to say they weren't enjoying WandaVision so far, but I utterly and completely disagree with you. I think you're going to see a lot of people are really into this, really liking these things that they're doing. Again, it's hard to separate your own experience from something from the experience, the people you're watching it with. And I know I'm watching with Ann, and Ann was just delighted the whole way through. She was loving it. She found it hilarious. She thought it was charming. I certainly thought it was really charming. Very creative, very different. I think it's a winner. Again, not my top 5 favorite MCU things I've ever seen, but I think it's an absolute winner. But again, like we said a little bit earlier, whenever you try something new and different, it's not going to be for everybody. And this part so far through 2 episodes hasn't been for you, but all I can say is slow and bad story, disagree on both counts. I don't think it's been slow. It's a slow burn, but I don't find it's been slow. I certainly don't think it's been a bad story. So far, I'm really intrigued. And I think it's been very charming and warm and funny and creepy when it needs to be. And I'm digging it. But you're not, and that's totally cool. I'm glad you shared your opinion on that, Night Vision. Thanks for sharing, man. All right, next up. Dark Knight Rise writes, 1 of 2. Hi, John. I tend to occur with your assessment of Bible and religious films. Many of them are for unsophisticated and lower IQ audiences. Not necessarily. If you could speak to a room full of those making them, what advice or critique would you give them? Let's go to part 2. There are some great films, however. I think some have faith relationships. The Mission with Robert De Niro, that's a pretty good film, actually, with Robert De Niro and Jeremy Irons. Tender Mercies with Robert Duvall, Schindler's List, even Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors have some references to faith or religion. True, but it's a different thing when a movie has references or some thematic elements that have basis in faith or religion versus a movie who a religious message is the core fundamental whole basis of the movie, right? I hate Christian movies. And you've probably heard me say this before. The funny thing is, the place I developed my hatred for Christian movies was seminary. I just because I was a Bible college seminary student. And I really hate it more and more every time. Christian movies are just so bad. And I think you asked me about what would be the one piece of advice I would give. And here's what it is. The problem with, I think, faith-based movies, not movies that have faith elements, but faith-based movies, is that they do not start from a position of, let's tell a good story. They start from a position of, ultimately, our message of this movie is our faith-based message, and that's their starting point. From there, they don't really care about whether or not they actually build a quality movie around that. As long as they deliver their faith-based message, that's all they're really out to do. And frankly, the demographic that they're making these movies to appeal to, that's all they're looking for. Just show me a movie that affirms a faith-based message that I already believe. And there's an audience for that. That's fine. But as somebody who was more of a movie fan when I was in seminary, it's like, it's driving me crazy. Start with a great movie and then integrate your faith-based message into it. But the vast, vast, vast majority, if not all of the faith-based movies I've ever seen have done it ass backwards. And so that's not me having a criticism of faith, not at all. It's a criticism. I think that it should be portrayed much better than it is. So that's why usually whenever I see a faith-based movie coming out, I don't give it the time of day. Not because I don't like the fact that there's a faith-infused movie, but the problem is they never start from a position of, let's tell a great, strong story with great characters and all that kind of stuff, and let's infuse it with a faith-based message. Instead, they do it the reverse. They go, okay, let's make a movie about this faith-based message. Now, just throw in whichever characters and whatever overused plot devices you want, as long as at the end of the day, it's a faith-based message. And that's why so that would be my recommendation. If I could sit in a room in a conference filled with producers of faith-based films, what I would say is stop starting from a point of the faith-based message is everything first, and then try to build a story around it. Build a great story first, and then infuse it with your faith-based message. That would be my recommendation. But that's just me. And I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm only speaking for myself because you asked. So if anybody doesn't like the answer I just gave, I'm just answering honestly a question that was asked to me. So everybody calm down. But that's kind of my take on it. Anyway, next up, McKeel writes, Every time I watch Joker, I can feel my heart pounding through the movie, especially when Arthur is on the Murray show. Yeah, that's an intense scene, man. Such an intense, you just said yourself, such an intense scene, such an incredible performance, over under 20%. The movie influenced the decision for R-rated Deadpool in the MCU. Zero. Absolutely zero. The movie that influenced Deadpool for an R rating was Deadpool. Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2, and to a smaller degree, Logan, influenced that than Joker. A Deadpool movie is nothing like a Joker movie. Nothing like that Joker movie. And that Joker movie was R-rated for completely different reasons than a Deadpool gets its R rating. The material and the subject matter that Joker gets an R rating from is nothing like the material and subject matter that Deadpool gets its R rating for. So absolutely 100,000% absolute zero that Joker had anything to do with the MCU going ahead with rated R. If anything, Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2, and to maybe a smaller extent Logan, but Joker, no, not at all, because it's so radically night and day different. I just don't think there's any similarities there at all. But that movie's so good. That Joker movie's so good. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, McKeel. By the way, McKeel, the name of a great, although it's spelled differently, a great like Celtic rock band from Canada, from Nova Scotia, that I used to love back in the 90s. Oh, I used to love this band, McKeel. If any of you guys know anything about that band, McKeel, send me something. Who knows? Maybe if some of you, maybe if a former member of that band watches this show, please write to me. I used to love your stuff. I went to see your live shows numbers of times. Anyway, that's that. Let's move on here. Dark Knight Rises also writes, how do you categorize Barbra Streisand? She's not Meryl Streep. No, she's nowhere near Meryl Streep. But she sings, she can do comedy, drama, act, or direct. She's not conventionally gorgeous, but I think she's in her own league. No one really compares to her. No, that's true. Barbra Streisand. I mean, there are a number of people in Hollywood that you can just say their first name. And Barbara, everybody knows in Hollywood, you're talking about Barbra Streisand. She is like no one else that has come before her, and there has never been another Barbra Streisand. She's such a unique personality, both personally and as a business figure, the Hollywood entertainment business. She is so unique and revered and almost deified in many ways. But yeah, you can't categorize Barbra Streisand. Barbara's Barbara. She's Barbra Streisand. She is her own category in and of herself. Like, she's not the greatest actress. She's not the greatest singer. She's not the greatest Hollywood personality, but it is this very unique combination of which that there's not many like her. Like Barbra Streisand, George Burns, characters like this they were just so uniquely them that you can't really compare them to anybody else. And I think she's one of those people. Anyway, I don't think I've ever had anybody in the John Campea Show bring up Barbra Streisand. Good on you for that, Dark Knight Rises. All right, next up, Chicagoland writes, hey, John, what's the relationship between Chicago and Hollywood? The Windy City has contributed Harrison Ford and Bill Murray, Steppenwolf and Second City, John Hughes and Michael Mann. Seems like a place for a good documentary. Well, listen, really, when you look at it, Chicago is Chicago's one of the biggest major cities in America. All of the biggest major cities in America have contributed a lot to Hollywood. Whether you're talking about New York or San Francisco or things like that, like big major cities contribute a lot to the texture of Hollywood, and Chicago's no different. Actually, right now, it's really weird. The big cinematic universe in television right now isn't even the MCU. The big cinematic universe in television right now is those damn Chicago shows. Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, Chicago Med. Was there a fourth one? I think there was a fourth one at some point, wasn't there? Anyway, I don't watch Chicago Fire or Chicago Med, but I do watch Chicago PD. I actually quite like that. I like the characters in that show, so I watched that one. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, it is the biggest cinematic universe on television right now. It's all Chicago based. And you're right. And you know what? Even John Schnepp came to us from Chicago. I think he lived somewhere else first, but I know he was from Chicago for a while. And even he came from that. So there you go, Chicagoland. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, how are you today? I'm very good. Thank you very much. Wasn't able to catch the spoiler WandaVision discussion, so I'll just let you know my comments on it. Overall, I loved it. I thought it was very unique and different, and I can't wait to see more of this show. Overall, I guess that was Casey McNatt. Overall, I thought that the second episode was better than the first one, and I was able to catch the Easter eggs after watching the episodes a few more times. I also think that it looks like Paul Bettany was having a hell of a lot of fun filming that second episode. You know, it's funny, Casey, because one of the things that Anne mentioned in the spoiler review that we did was you can just tell that Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen were having an absolute blast making that show. And you can just tell they were having the time of their lives making this show. You can just tell watching it, right? You can really tell when a performer is having a legitimately good time. Even if it's a horror movie or a serious drama, there's something that as an audience member, you can tell when the performers are legitimately really loving what they're doing. And I just completely got that. And I agree. I think the second episode is better, but that's to be accepted. That's to be expected because the second episode builds on the first one. And by the way, when you guys see the third episode, you'll see that the third episode builds on the first two. So I agree with you. I think I like the second one just as even better than the first one, but that partially has to do with because of all the groundwork that episode one laid that builds into our expectations and our understanding of the show so we can get it in episode two, and they take it even a little bit further. And damn right, Bettany, Olsen, they were having a blast making it, and it just makes it more fun for you as an audience when you can feel that coming off of the performers, you know? So I'm 100% in agreement with you on that, Casey, and I'm glad you're liking the show because I know I am too. All right, next up, SM89 writes, so far, I'm intrigued by WandaVision. I understand the sitcom-styled 30-minute episodes, but I really feel Disney Plus should have stayed with 6 one-hour episodes. If people are losing interest, they might not stick around to the end. Will it hold the audience? It'll hold the audience. The vast majority of the people are really enjoying it. I mean, but there are clearly some people that aren't, and I think that's to be expected. You know, it's a repeated theme I've said today, but I'll say it again. When you try something radically different, you have to expect that there's going to be a certain percentage of people that it will not work for. And they have certainly gone for something very, 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 very different in this WandaVision thing. They've never done anything remotely like this. And the further you go in trying something completely radically different, the higher your expectations would be that there's going to be a percentage of people that it just legitimately doesn't work for. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know. Listen, I do like longer episodes, but so far I've been really enjoying them. Even at a half hour, I've been enjoying them. So I don't know. It's hard to give an evaluation about, at the end of the day, I can say, I feel like they should have done fewer episodes that were longer. I need to see the whole series first. Once the series is done, then we can sit down and do a little bit of armchair quarterbacking and, you know, make some determinations about whether we thought it could have worked better this way or that way. But for now, I'm kind of enjoying the ride. I know a lot of people are. So let's see how it kind of goes. All right. Thanks for running that in, SM. All right. Next up, Sam Fisher writes, forget what I said about Olsen having bad acting in Ultron. Just rewatched, and she's great. It's not the movie as a whole. Also, as I said, I saw her perform in Romeo and Juliet on stage, where she was amazing. Yeah, and again, she has proven herself to be a really good actress outside of the MCU. You know, it's still weird to me as somebody who grew up watching her sisters, Mary-Kate and Ashley. Is that the name of the other Olsen twin? Mary-Kate and Ashley on Full House. You know, you'd think of them going on to have Hollywood careers, but I guess they kind of got soured to it and don't want to be in Hollywood anymore. And their other sister comes out and becomes the big movie star. It's really kind of interesting the way that works. But no, seriously, Elizabeth Olsen is a tremendously gifted actress. And that one movie she did, Wind River, so good. If you haven't seen Wind River, absolutely check it out. Thanks for sending that in, Sam. Appreciate that. All right. Sam also writes, do you think part of Olsen's casting process was chemistry testing with Bettany? Because their chemistry is amazing. I believe that Wanda and Vision are a loving married couple. I don't think so. Because you got to remember when they did, listen, before Ultron, Paul Bettany had no idea that he was going to be playing a live action character at all. You know, Paul Bettany tells, we talked about it on the show, Paul Bettany tells a story about, he had just been told by his agent that his days as a big Hollywood guy are over, and well, no one's going to hire him anymore. And then walking out of that meeting, he got a call from Disney saying, hey, we'd like to actually make you a live action character. We want to make you Vision. So, yeah, no, and they had to cast, they cast her early. So you know what? No, it wouldn't. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised to find out down the road that part of it was playing her off Bettany, but I'm not even sure Bettany knew he was going to be playing Vision. I don't think the timing lined up, so I'm going to guess probably not. But you're right. Their chemistry together on screen, particularly in WandaVision, is awesome. I love their chemistry together. So I see where you're coming from that. All right. Sam also writes, one of two. Hey, John and Rob's not here right now. Given the popularity of Wonder Woman, what is the likelihood Marvel would introduce Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, whether it be in WandaVision or the wider MCU? I know name similarity is not a reason to do a thing. We don't even have to discuss any further than that. But it does happen with other companies, and these are the only two characters in Marvel and DC I can think of with similar enough names to confuse the general audience, other than Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel in Captain Marvel in DC, but they changed the one name to Shazam. There you go. Similar enough to confuse the general audience. Also, there was a reference to his brother Grim Reaper in the episode 2 theme. I'd say 0. Absolute 0. That's not how professionals like Kevin Feige think. Now, that's not to say we could never have a, Wonder Man in the MCU, but no, Kevin Feige's not like, hey, what's kind of hot is the Wonder Woman character's pretty hot right now. Well, we've got another character that has wonder in their name too. Let's make a movie about that. Why are we making a movie about that character? Because he has the word wonder in his name. That's you don't get to the level of success that Kevin Feige has achieved by doing that sort of logic. So again, not saying that they can't ever use that character, but if they ever use that character, it will have absolutely zero to do with the fact that Wonder Woman's pretty popular and she's got the word wonder in her name, So no, absolutely 1000% 0. I think if some schmuck like me was in charge of Marvel, then maybe I would employ such reasoning. But when you're a guy like Kevin Feige with that level of understanding, professionalism, and intelligence, that is not why you make a movie. No one is going to go to a movie because, hey, you know what? Wonder Woman was really good. And this other movie that has nothing to do with that one has the word wonder in the title. I bet I'll like that. Like, audiences won't do that. So there's no reason to make a movie based on it. So I would say absolute complete 0. Absolute complete 0. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Sam. Next up, the Wakandan Forever writes, I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero to the end of the. How many great movies has that song been used in? Like a lot. I think Johnny 5 didn't Short Circuit use that as well? I can't remember. Anyway, he's got to be strong. He's got to be fast. He's got to be fresh from the fight. He's got to be sure. He's got to be soon, and he's got to be larger than life and need here. It's a song that's been used. I couldn't even tell you how. That would actually be an interesting trivia question. How many movies has used the song I Need a Hero? Because I bet it's in the double digits. I bet minimum it's in the double digits. Anyway, Wakandan Forever also writes, hey, John, you better be right about Captain America and Baby Yoda returning. LOL, everyone have a good one. Wakandan Forever. Well, I mean, obviously Captain's character. And listen, make no mistake about it. Baby Yoda will be back in Mandalorian season 3. Whether it's for 2 episodes, for 7 episodes, whatever. I'm sure, unlike Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2, where the story was about Baby Yoda, I'm sure that won't be the case in season 3. But they know this show is a worldwide phenomenon because of that character. The hardcore Star Warsies, we would have watched Mandalorian without Baby Yoda. But it became a global phenomenon because of that damn Baby Yoda thing. And they know where their bread is buttered. So yes, we're going to see that character. And don't forget, when Mando says to Baby Yoda in the final episode, he says, we'll see you again, I promise. That was Jon Favreau talking to the audience saying, you're going to see Baby Yoda again. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't discontinue your Disney Plus membership because Baby Yoda's gone. He's coming back. We promise. So he'll be there. One way or the other, to some degree or another, he will be there. All right, next up. Sergeant Ward writes, "Hey, John, what is a famous unmade movie that you wish would have gotten made? For me, it's Stanley Kubrick Napoleon movie or Claire Noto's The Tourist. Look it up. It's really cool. What that never got made you wish actually got made? Not many. There really aren't many, if any. For the most part, it's like if it didn't get made, it didn't get made for a reason. I mean, even like, well, John, what about the subject of John Schnepp's The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened? Don't you wish that Superman Lives movie got made? Honestly, no. I think that would have been a train wreck, awful movie. That's something me and Schnepp, we used to debate about all the time when we go out for lunch. We would go back and talk about Superman Lives, because this documentary is great and it's fascinating. But when it comes down to, would we really have wanted them to make that movie? Schnepp was like, hell yeah, that would have been awesome. And everything I learn about everything I learn about Superman Lives is just one more affirmation that it's a good thing it never got made. Because I think that movie was going to be an absolute disaster. I think it would have been terrible. But who knows? Maybe it would have been great. But no, honestly, I really can't think of any. I mean, the George Miller Justice League movie, that's one that intrigues me. The one where Armie Hammer was going to be Batman. That movie intrigues me. That one could have been interesting. It would have totally changed the fate and direction that the DCEU is in now. I mean, it totally would have changed history. But that's one. But other than that, not many of them, to be honest with you, Sergeant. Not many of them at all. But that's just me. All right. Thanks a lot, man. Next up, Wakanda Forever writes, "Hey, John, do you remember Bat Kid? I don't, as a matter of fact. I live in the Bay Area and was at City Hall." Oh, you mean like the kid who actually I thought you meant like the comic book character Bat Kid. But yes, I do remember Bat Kid. I absolutely do. And they made that video that was awesome stuff. I live in the Bay Area and was at City Hall when they turned San Francisco into Gotham City for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. It is still one of the most moving experiences I ever remember as a Californian. No, that was beautiful. Let me see if I can find, and then they even made that's right. They made a documentary about it, I think, called Bat Kid Begins, The Wish Heard Around the World. Yeah, they actually made a documentary about it. And I mean, yeah, man, that was seriously one of the more inspirational things you ever heard of. That was great. If you guys don't remember the whole Bat Kid phenomena, you really should go and look up some YouTube videos on it. It's touching, it's special. And it's one of those things when you realize, sometimes humanity doesn't suck. Look at that. Sometimes, maybe not often, but sometimes humanity doesn't suck. And it is one of those things. Thanks for sharing that again, Wakanan. All right. If you don't answer this, writes, "I haven't seen anybody say it, but I will. Quicksilver and Space Stone are blue. Wanda and Reality Stone are red. Kat Dennings is in WandaVision because of Thor 2, so she knows a little something about altered reality." I don't know. I'll listen. Anything's possible. The mind of Kevin Feige is as a mystery to all, and that's certainly possible. I'll be frank with you, though, that seems like a bit of a stretch. That seems like a little bit of a stretch. Nothing of Wanda in the movie so far has had anything to do with the color red. But John, her traditional costume in the comics. Yeah, I know the traditional costume in the comics, which we're going to see her in a Halloween episode, but I think that's a bit of a stretch. By the way, I still think it's a possibility Quicksilver shows up in this show. It would make sense. When you understand the underlying foundation of what this show is, Quicksilver showing up would make sense. I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying I wouldn't doubt if he does, but that's a bit of a stretch. But listen, if they do show that works out, I will think about your comment on that. If you don't answer this, I will totally think about that. All right. Willow writes, not movie related, but do you think the Summer Olympics will happen this year? Do you prefer Summer or Winter Olympics? I prefer Winter Olympics. Yeah, I prefer Winter Olympics. Mostly because the marquee event of the Winter Olympics is hockey. And that's the best thing ever. But yeah, I just find a lot more of the Olympic sports a lot more interesting. Don't get me wrong. That's not me poo-pooing on the Summer Olympics. Not at all. I think the Summer Olympics are great. I'm a big Olympics. I watch the Olympics every year. There's something about that. The world comes together. I think it's wonderful. But yeah, I personally prefer the Winter Olympics. And I will say, yes, I think the Summer Olympics will happen this year. I think Japan will have them hell or high water. I think they will have them. And I think they'll do it all right. Now, maybe it'll turn out to be a bad decision, but my guess is they're going to move forward with it. So we'll see, Willow. We'll see. All right. Thanks for writing that in. Next up, Darklock63 writes, I think viewers are missing the obvious. It's not sword, but aim that's probably behind what's going on in WandaVision. Wanda was given her powers by Hydra, and aim was their scientific arm before it split off. They also wear the hazmat beekeeper suits. Well, listen, I pointed that out right when I did the spoiler review. That's the first thing I went to. I said, listen, first thing we need to talk about is this. The possibility of the AIM thing. Now, the AIMs do not wear beekeeper suits. They wear those scientific, like hazmat kind of suits, but they are referred to as beekeepers. So the first place I went to, and in the comic books at any rate, Strucker was the founder of AIM, right? He created AIM, if I remember correctly. So there's all that connection. That being said, the back of the shirt was a sword logo. So yeah, it's hard to get away from that. Because if you go back and watch the episode again, when the beekeeper has his back to the camera, you can sort of see the sword logo is on the beekeeper suit. So there's that. So my first thought was AIM, but I've kind of leaned away from that now. Not that it's an impossibility still, but I was in that position where I thought, oh, this is AIM. The Strucker connection, the beekeeper suit, it's AIM. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, no, probably not. But hey, we'll find out soon enough. We're getting into episode 3. Then pretty soon we're going to have 4 and 5. And then we'll get, I think, a little bit clearer picture of what's going on there, Darklock. But I'll keep that in mind. All right, next up. Sergeant Ward writes, hey, John. I don't think Nolan will work with Warner's anymore. But what about his company, Syncope? Can Nolan just tear up the contract and sign up with another studio? How does that work? Every contract is different. Every contract is different. And within contract, because listen, when you're negotiating a contract, you can put anything in the contract you want. If both sides agree to it, then fine. You can put anything in a contract you want. If you and I enter into a contract that you're hiring me for $1 million a year to make videos for your YouTube channel, and you're going to pay me $1 million a year, and I have to do, 6 videos per week and blah, blah, blah. If I want to, I can put in the contract on every Tuesday, you will deliver to me a ham, cheese, and mayo sandwich. Just for argument's sake. Every Tuesday afternoon. It's like, what does that have to do with you making YouTube videos for his channel and him paying you $1 million? Nothing. But in the contract, I can put anything in the contract that I want. I put anything in there I want. I can say on Wednesday afternoons at 3 p.m., you have to come over and massage my feet with honey. It sounds disgusting, but I can do that. If I want to put that in the contract, I can. And then it's up to you as to whether you agree to sign the contract or not, or negotiate it out, whatever. But you can put anything in a contract, and every contract is unique. So, and most big contracts will have clauses for how to end the contract. That, hey, if this trigger happens, or if this trigger happens, or if this trigger happens, or if this or this or this, then such and such will have the option of nullifying and voiding this contract, blah, blah, blah. So it really all depends. Does Nolan have somewhere in his overall deal with Warner Brothers certain clauses that say, hey, if Warner Brothers does certain types of things, Christopher Nolan has the option of exercising his rights of nullifying the it really all depends. It really all depends on how that goes. But let's say all other things are equal and it's just a straightforward contract. He's in a development contract with Warner Brothers. They have a first look deal on everything that he does for the next 4 films that he makes. Well, then there's no getting out of it. Warner Brothers can either choose to release him if he wants out, or they can just tell Christopher Nolan, tough. If you want to make movies, you got to give us the first look at the movies you want to make, and we have to have first choice of them. So again, I'm speaking in hypotheticals because I don't know the nature of their contract. But like I'm saying, on its surface, it could be that way, but it all depends on how it's structured. Anyway, it's a great question though, Sergeant. All right. Othello writes, I feel safer going to the movie theaters regularly once I get both doses of the vaccine. I will have 95% protection from symptomatic illnesses, although I will still mask up and socially distance because there is no evidence asymptomatic protection yet. Now, no, that's the thing a lot of people got to remember. Even once you yourself get immunized, you very much should still practice safe. You should still engage in safe practices for the courtesy of the people around you. Like, don't be a selfish asshole. And I think you've got the absolute 100% right attitude there, Othello. I wish more people thought along the same way you do. So good on you, man. Good on you. And yeah, apparently Ann and I aren't even going to qualify to get our vaccinations till about March sometime. But that's fine. There are people who need it more than we do. So perfect. No problem. But, oh God, the idea of us just getting back to normal is, it's just getting exhausting. You know what I mean? All right. The Wakandan Forever writes, I've always been into chess and superheroes, but Mrs. Wakandan, not so much. Now with Queen's Gambit and WandaVision, she is interested in them. In a funny way, our relationship is stronger watching them together. I mean, that is one thing. The funny thing is, a lot of people, you're seeing a bigger interest in chess. I saw this one report on a website talking about the amount of Google searches regarding to the game of chess, like went up by like 700% or something like that in the immediate couple of weeks following the release of Queen's Gambit. I think Queen's Gambit, that's one of the things, like it's little movies like that come out that radically increase the public's interest in things like that, right? And I think Queen's Gambit probably did that for chess. All right. Last question of the day, guys. And then we got a call day. We've gone over 2.5 hours already. Stubble McShave writes, how much of an impact do you think WandaVision had on Disney Plus subscriptions? Did it make someone push that button for the WandaVision content? If it did, what do you think it was for the WandaVision show alone, or that it signals the start of the new MCU content on Disney? I think here's the key thing about that. And again, this is just me speculating, but I think the appeal is not just for WandaVision. I don't think there's a ton of people who are signing up for Disney Plus just for WandaVision. I think what is more probable is that you're getting people signing up for their interest in the MCU on Disney Plus. And WandaVision is just one piece of that puzzle. Right? I don't think let's put it this way. I do not think there are very many people out there who are really interested in WandaVision, but not at all interested in Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki and Moon Knight and She-Hulk and Miss Marvel. Like, no interest in any of those, but I'm totally into WandaVision. You know what I mean? I don't think there's many of those. There may be some, but I don't think there's many of those. I think for the most part, it is a larger scale thing about people who love the MCU. And WandaVision is a part of that. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's exactly what you're asking, Stubble, but I mean, that's kind of my take on it, that I think even most people who signed up in time to watch WandaVision, it's not about watching WandaVision, it's about watching this chapter of the MCU story that is now on Disney Plus. And again, I've conducted no scientific studies to confirm that hypothesis. That's just kind of my guess. That's just kind of my guess as a fan. All right, guys, listen. We still have more to go, but that's fine. We'll get picked up on these on tomorrow's episode of the John Campea Show. From Blake and Chad and Adam and everybody on else, we are going to start off tomorrow's live questions part of the show by starting with your questions first, guys. So that will be that. And don't forget, tomorrow's John Campea Show, that's Tuesday's John Campea Show, will start at a special time of 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 2 hours later than normal. And that's just me experimenting to see if I can get around this congestion time around 11 o'clock when my internet upload suddenly magically drops and we get buffered. So hopefully that will at least solve the problem until Ann and I get moved into our new house, which is coming in 11 days. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here and taking some time out to watch or listen to the show if you're listening to the podcast version of this. Special thank you to all of you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here involved with the John Campea channel, thank you guys very, very much for that. All right, guys, make sure you do the main thing. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.